Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Negative Alpha Bravo. And this is 7 November Golf. Roger, request you check your Romeo side. I'll go ahead and check my Tango side. 7 November Golf out. November 8-5. And 8-5, 7 November, say again. Roger, 7 November, go. I copied a while ago, 1 Charlie transmission that my thing used, November, go, 1 Charlie, Charlie. And 8-5, this is 7 November, Charlie. 8-5, Roger. Now 1 Charlie, 7 November, go.
This is 1 Charlie, welcome to your line. You're Brandon 158 extra box cross line at 1200 between Phoenix and local. Also request your unit take outbound message to see if we can try to get Whiskey 9 and 8 for pause at the playground.
And this is 7 November, Roger, stand by.
Got that.
Got it? Alright. And all units, this is 7 November Golf. My unit Alpha, Echo, X-ray Alpha Alpha in there.
One Charlie, Alpha Bravo.
Yeah, I never took a dip. I forgot to take a dip.
Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Whiskey 9, Yankee, 7 November Golf, over. This is Whiskey 9, go. Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Whiskey 9, Yankee, 7 November Golf, over. This is Whiskey 9, go. Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Negative Alpha Bravo. And this is 7 November Golf. Roger, request you check your Romeo side. I'll go ahead and check my Tango side. 7 November Golf out. November 8-5. And 8-5, 7 November, say again. Roger, 7 November, go.
All right, welcome to a live stream. We got TheCIVDIV and Dwayne Kimball from KMD. You know, Dwayne, a lot of people, at least on my channel, have been saying, hey, you and KMD are the best. I want to see this duo, KMD this, TheCIVDIV that. And so here you go. Here's what you asked for, right? So Secret Sauce says, wow, this is crazy. Y'all two going live together. Literally the two people I watched on YouTube about VA compensation. So KMD, welcome. Thank you for doing this live stream together. It should be pretty good. What do you have to say?
Hey, thank you for inviting me. When you reached out, I was super excited because I know both our schedules are crazy.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think it's good to bring a couple of different perspectives because, a lot of people on my channel, they just hear me talk. So now they get to see you on my channel and vice versa. So I think it's a good thing. And, I'm super excited about it because at the end of the day, I know you agree with me. It's all about the veteran getting what they deserve.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up because something that we say all the time is disability compensation is so nuanced. There's rarely is there one answer for every situation ever. It's like, okay, well, what about this? What about that? What about this? And you kind of walk that dog down to the answer. There's never one answer. So today we're going to have double perspectives on this live Q&A. And to start it off, we have Lavender Savoy or Leander Savoy. I'm going to butcher names, okay? I'm from Kentucky. We can just leave it at that. Now, this person wrote a book. There's 5 comments. So let's just go ahead and break this down. I think this is a great one to start with. I've had 40% loss of use of a foot for 38 years. Never got an increase or filed for more claims. But October 22, I had a heart valve replacement and bypass on hypertension. I filed a claim. We're just gonna break this down because there's no way I'm gonna remember what you've said after we read this all. I can tell you the loss of use for a foot at a minimum that should be a 40% rating. If my memory is correct, you'll see it in 38 CFR, and then of course the loss of use pushes that claim into the SMC scale, depending on what exactly it is we're talking about, right? So off the bat, that's something that I'm seeing. KMD, do you want to? I might say KMD, I might say Dwayne.
You're
I don't
fine.
know what's going to come out here.
Yeah, you're fine. I would say, taking the second part of that, backing up real quick, 40% loss of use. A lot of people ask me, well, what about and I'm like, I don't have these diagnostic codes memorized. Some I do. Some I do, like the migraine, sleep apnea. So one, I would check the 38 CFR, or actually in your disability breakdown letter, get the 4-digit diagnostic code from the 800 number, or if you got a copy of the claims folder, it'll be on the code sheet, and Google it and see in rating scheduler, is that the highest percentage or is there anything higher? And you are correct about the SMCs, and people ask me about the SMCs. I'm like, there's several of them. I don't have any of them memorized, but I even still have my SMC manual from radar training. So even I have to go back to those. So if the SMC, if that falls on the SMC, you could look through there to see if that loss of use will qualify. Then the heart valve replacement and bypass, hypertension, where do they fall under the 5 ways of service connection? Do you have a diagnosis?
Exactly.
You got to start there.
Yeah, that inserts vent the current diagnosis, and then of course the net nexus. So that's still up in the air. His second comment in this book of questions we got here is, for those anxiety and diabetes, I had gained 100 pounds because I wear a long-legged brace, not able to execute, and the pain. Oh, I see how he's connecting that together, right? He's saying his foot condition, which is loss of use, which is severe. That is, that's not a scrape on your foot. That is something that's extremely severe. The only thing that's next is removal of the foot, right? And so that's what the level of severity we're talking about here. I mean, he's saying that caused him to gain weight, which then in turn caused the heart conditions.
Okay.
I'm going to assume the heart conditions, and I'm just going to rope those all into one, especially hypertension. I think what he's saying is the secondary basis of weight gain, which when you look at weight or obesity as an intermediate step, it has to make sense, right? I see a lot of people saying, hey, I got 10% for my knee. I'm obese, yada, yada, yada. Let me submit this claim. And then the VA will say, well, you're not dieting correctly. You're not working out, whatever. That's the cause, not a 10% for your knee. In this case, and loss of use, that automatically off the bat starts to make sense, right? We can't see evidence, obviously, but reading this, you're creating that story that makes sense. What do you want to add to that?
And also, one thing I tell people, it's different from when I went through training. These VA employees these days, the training is different. They're rushing them through this particular training, and just like you pointed out, it makes sense. But crazy it may seem, that new VA employee, I guarantee, is not going to make sense to them. They're going to be like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? So years ago, I didn't care if I saw a diagnosis or not. If it was a complaint somewhere or treatment and service, you get in the CMP exam. Not today. You need that diagnosis. So loss of use, and I think the wording is going to have to be very detailed. I'm claiming, diabetes as an intermediate step due to X, Y, and Z. You have to spell that out, just to get to the CMP exam. Because you just say secondary, you may have that overzealous VA employee. Oh, there's no continuity, little things that I picked up on as a rater. I saw other raters use just as not a claim without a CMP exam.
Yeah, absolutely. And something to add to your situation, Leander, is medical evidence. I always tell veterans this: when you submit medical evidence, not self-diagnosis, not self-reported symptoms. I'm talking like documented evidence from your preferably your primary care, it almost allows veterans like this cushion to kind of lean on in the appeals process, specifically higher level review. Once you submit that claim without evidence, you kind of lose that cushion. And then the CMP examiner, assuming you get one, that becomes the staple for your claim, right? Because it is in lieu of medical evidence. And so off the bat, definitely make sure you get medical evidence to whatever's going on here. There's like 50 different things.
Right.
Now
Well,
it says, but go
before
ahead.
we move on, Clay, I want to point out, you pointed out something that's very important, and I guarantee a lot of veterans missed that nugget. You stated already be proactive and have some evidence there just in case you have to do a high level review. That is huge, because we know once you submit that 0996, you can submit new evidence, but it's not going to be taken into consideration. So now you have to think, hey, let me put the correct evidence in my file at the time I submit that claim. So if I have to go to a high level review and there's an argument, you already got that. The evidence is already of record. So yeah, that was a good point.
Especially for like, if you're going direct service connection, you know you have it in your service treatment records from the Marine Corps or whatever service you are. If you know that you have a current diagnosis because you went to the VA, that is an easy claim, right? That's not what people struggle with. People struggle with the secondaries. People struggle with appeal specifically. And then the only time I do see veterans struggle with direct claims, because I said it, now I feel like I have to, kind of back that up, is when there's a significant time gap. So let's say it's 1994, you were seen on your exit exam for knee pain. It's 2024. So 30 years later, you now have a diagnosis of, right knee, whatever. The VA is going to look at continuity of symptoms, and that is no longer an easy claim.
Right.
But you're talking like BDDs, or you're out of service for 1 year, easy peasy. All this stuff you see on YouTube probably does not apply to that veteran specifically. So it definitely depends on timeline stuff.
I always, when that happens, one statement that I was looking for as a rater, and I even use this in my personal claim. In the military, we're trained to do what? Suck it up, not to go to sick call. So when veterans would say, hey, I was in a combat unit, I was trained, to suck it up. I did go and get, seek treatment. But once I exited from service, you just can't turn that switch off. You're still the same way unless it really, really hurts. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And still get the CMP exam. But now you're at second base and you got to deal with that CMP examiner that's going to have that same mindset.
Absolutely. I want to break away here. So real quick, guys, thank you for being a member and thank you for donating. StreamYard does not tell me which channel it is, so we're just going to blanket say thank you, okay? So thank you for being a member. Welcome to the team. AFET, thank you very much for the super sticker. We definitely appreciate that. We have Sir Fresh, who with a $5 donation with a question. We're definitely going to answer this one, right? Can I get back pay for a denied claim from 2017? And I claim this year is for PTSD, and evaluators are accepting all of my claims. Let's go ahead and get your take on this one, and then I'll add some two cents.
Yeah, if they didn't let that 360, two things. If they didn't let the 365 days lapse from the date of the notification letter, and you came back in, you continue to pursue that claim, then yeah, that effective date could possibly go back to 2017. If not, you get your copy of your claims folder, and what you're going to look for is a CUE, a clear and unmistakable error. If it rises to that level, it's up to the veteran, to present the burden of proof. And if it rises to the level of CUE and the VA agrees with you, even though that 365 days has lapsed, then yes, that effective date could go back to 2017.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to give it to you real, Sir Fresh. The likelihood of finding a Q, that clear unmistakable error, it is very low. So just keep that in mind. And if you don't know, and the back pay would be worth it, it is a mental health claim, which is your high value claim. So 70% for the last 7-8ish years, whatever that math is, that is that did in public, right? if it's worth it, that might be a time to go to an accredited attorney and explore that Q world, because one, Qs are hard to find, and two, they're difficult to prove because you have to prove the VA made a mistake. So if the back pay is worth it, which for PTSD it very well could be, that's something to at least consider, right? Have in your back pocket. And if you have to go that route, then there you go. There it is. And we have Terrence Bon Yahuda. I know I butchered that one, but thank you very much. We definitely appreciate that.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go back to chat here. So we have veterans helping others. Put some hot sauce on those burritos. All right, dude. You got it. Amy Girl says my two favorite together. I'm about to spontaneously combust. Yeah, I've seen tons of comments of CIVDIV and KMD, so I'm definitely glad that we're doing this.
Most definitely, yeah. Oh yeah.
Let's see. Chris Hubbs says yes, this is going to be legendary. These two helping vets with the disability compensation. I'm going in order, by the way. I'm not picking and choosing.
Yeah.
Scrap Guy says hello. What's up? How's it going? SM says what the heck? Outstanding. And John Wayne Gatlin, thank you for being a member. We definitely appreciate that. I just left my PCC about 30 minutes ago. Regular checkup. My phone sucks, so bear with me. Dude. Well, first, thank you for tuning in. I assume you're driving. If that's the case, just listen. Don't watch us. Watch the road. All right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, Killmonger. Here's a question that is pretty intricate. So, can you discuss the implementation of CAFC presidential decision of Alaska v. McDonough SMCT, and how will VA implement it going further now? I'll tell you straight up, I haven't even. When it comes to case law and things like that, it's very difficult because it's so intricate that if you find a case law on a disability similar to you, the situation and the evidence for that specific situation may not be the same. So I always start with that, right? Case law is, we're in the attorney world right now. Just keep that in mind. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. So I don't know if he left a comment on my YouTube channel yesterday or earlier, and then I saw it before we logged in. I'm in the M21-1, and that case is not coming up. Alaska, I think LASK is not coming up. McDonough's going to come up because that was a former, that's the current VA secretary. So there's tons of court cases. But when he talked about SMCT, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds with this, what I will look for as a rater, you got to have SMCL aid in attendance, right? But on that form, the conditions that you need, the residuals that you need, SMCT for TBI, you need aid in attendance. The residuals have to be due to the traumatic brain injury.
Yeah.
To qualify for SMCT. So I was trying to find that case. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, okay, let me go see what this court case is talking about in that regard. So like you said, as a rater, when I used to look at these, I was like, oh man, I got to read this court case. And it was just like pages and pages of stuff. And then you have to figure out, does it pertain to what you're doing with your case? It could, and then again, it could not.
Yeah, and I'm going to assume you're in the appeals process, because if you're looking at court cases, you're probably in the weeds when it comes to fighting for SMCT. And so depending on your situation, that might be another time to consider attorney. There is a point where appeals get too hard for the average veteran, okay? And at that point, you at least need to consider that. I will tell you this, Killmonger, one of my friends has SMCT, and it is, I'm gonna use, it is clear as day that he has SMCT. It's definitely not, he might have it, right? His TBI and PTSD are very, very severe, very, very extreme, and you can see it from the outside, not even knowing who this person is. Hopefully he's not at the grocery store, right? That's not something that he would be able to do, especially not by himself. So keep that in mind. And Baker says, hello, Dwayne, be safe in Florida. Yes, I second that. Be safe in Florida. It's crazy down there.
Yeah, it's we're in the grocery store, and you would think it was the end of the world. I'm like, how long have y'all been living in Florida? You always keep extra cases of water during the summertime, So David called me, David Piatek called me this morning. I said, hey man, make sure you got that Black Hawk on the tarmac at O'Hare. You might have to come get me.
Hopefully they didn't buy all the toilet paper, and if they did, hopefully you got yourself some.
We stay stocked up on all this stuff. So I got propane, cooler full of ice and all this stuff. So yeah, we're good here.
All right. So we have another one here. How long does it take for the VA to assign a rater to a claim? That's a great question, and it definitely. I'll start with this one. When it comes to timelines, there really is no way to give you an accurate decision, right? The VA will say 125 days. I've seen fully developed claims come back in 6 days. I've seen fully developed claims have unwarranted CMP exams. I've seen a lot of that. I've seen, claims take 6, 8, 7, 9 months. Claims be deferred. So there really is no accurate timeline. But as a rater, KMD, you're probably best suited to answer this one here.
So the way it works is they have what is called a national work queue. And, we used to call it the cloud, the VA cloud. Your claim is in the VA cloud, right? So you have management analysts at each regional office, and they would go and they would pull these claims, right? Or they'll get assigned to that regional office, and then the management analyst will send it down to a coach or an assistant coach, depending on if it needed to go to a VSR or RVSR, and they will have different teams. So you have RVSR teams, you have VSR teams. And then once they assign it to the coach, then the coach will assign it to, I think the last team I was on, we had maybe 15, 18 RVSRs, or maybe close to 20. And so they would decide, okay, who gets what, depending on who needed work. And that would go into VBMS-R. And it will pop up in your queue. You look at it, you work it. And when they came up with VBMS-R, I think we had to get claims out of our queue within 5 days, and then they went down to 3 days. So if you had 10 cases and you got to get 10 of them done in 3 days, and one of them got like 2,000 or 3,000 pages of evidence, not going to happen. So that's sort of the breakdown. And sometimes it changes. Throughout the year would change. They would say, okay, we'll go back to 7 days or 4 days or whatever. But that's how the cases would get assigned. Before VBMS-R, before claims went electronic, it was all paper. So I'm in Florida. Any veteran that had their Social Security number ended in 08, I probably worked between, I want to say maybe a 5 or 6 year period. Yeah. But now, when the claims went electronic, I was working veterans claims from all over the country. Ooh, excuse me.
Yeah. It is. I'm glad you brought up the time frame there, because whenever you had mentioned 5 days through 3 days, for anyone who doesn't know, once let's say you get 3 days to make that decision, those decisions you haven't made, they're gonna get deferred, right? And then something to think about too is the VAs, and I'm going to mention this. Feel free not to comment on it if you don't want to. That's fine. Performance. I'm a federal employee right now, and performance for the VA is very. How many claims can you get through? Not necessarily accurate, or not necessarily your due diligence. Is how many claims. And so to be real with you, raters are probably going to get through all those claims. Just looking at us as human beings, I want to perform well. I'm going to get through those claims. The question is, well, how did you get through those claims, right? Do you want to comment on that? Yeah. I don't want to put you in a weird spot.
No, you're fine. It depends on the rater, because if, I didn't get through those claims, just to be honest with you. I did, because I was taught I was taught to be an advocate for the veteran. The evidence has to speak for the veteran. If I'm rushing, I'm going to miss something. It happens. I even called CUEs on myself before. And I'm like, wait a minute, what was I thinking? I just get to that point, it's human nature. It's like, oh man, I was probably rushing. So I had to make 79 production points every 2 weeks. So I had a process set up to help me achieve it. Sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I didn't make it, and then sometimes I did. The majority of the times I did. So each rater may have their own little system where they're like, okay, I use this particular Word document to help me go through as I'm reviewing this evidence, so I don't have to review it a second time. But it's you have to pick and choose your battles, so to speak, when it comes to claims. So anything where if it was an EP930 for IU, CNC IU, I'm knocking out about 10 of those in like 2 hours to get my production quote up. Here in Los Angeles, I'm knocking those out, and then when you get to the Parkinson's, it's like, it's like a screeching halt because you may have 20 other conditions that you have to service connect secondary, and then you got to get the effective date right. So if you got 50% of those with different effective dates, it's going to take you a while.
Absolutely. And that's some good insight that you gave us. We have a lot of donations. This does not happen. So heck, we might want to do more live streams together. Who knows? Right? So Rob Ogletree says, my re-exam consists of general, blood work, and psycho. Which ones determine my MST PTSD? At first glance, anything with psi in it is definitely gonna involve MST PTSD. If you're talking about, and I hope this is not a subject I really want to talk about, but if it's like STDs involved, I could see how blood work would be a part of that. But generally speaking, your Gen Med CMP exams are going to be for your PACT Act related claims, like your sinusitis, your rhinitis. It just really depends on what other claims that you did submit. But based on this comment and this comment alone, it's your psycho CMP exam that's going to be your MST PTSD. Do you have anything to add to that?
I was wondering when he said my re-exam consists of general.
Yeah.
I wonder if he mentioned like a routine future exam, or he just he filed new claims and just come back in and getting a new claim. So that's when he said re-exam. That's what I was curious about, if it was a routine future examination.
Yeah, absolutely. Or he submitted new claims and there's evidence that indicates an improvement somewhere. So maybe that's being re-examined. I'm not really sure on that, but feel free to clarify that, Rob, if you'd like. So we have Akai Jackson here. I've done 3 HLRs, and the last one I pointed out all the evidence in my file with the DRO showing service connection. He still denied me. What do you do about incompetence at the VA blatantly denying you? So I would like to start this one out, and then I would love your regular experience. I can tell you from this, Akai, what we deem as evidence may not be evidence needed for service connection, right? The VA works for direct service connection. In the big 3, anything outside the big 3 does not matter, right? So the in-service event, what is your evidence from service? That's a requirement. It's not an option. It's a requirement. Medical evidence is strong. I'm assuming you don't fall into that. There's also evidence other than medical, and that's where things get, the lines start to be blurred a little bit. You need a current diagnosis. No diagnosis, no claim. That's just that. And then you need that nexus. It's going to come from a CMP examiner. You can go the route for a private nexus. I would only recommend that in appeals personally for supplementals. But everyone can have their opinion on that. That's what I wanted to start with, is the big 3. And that is like the VBA gospel, if you will, right? It's the big 3. KMD, what do you have to say about this particular? And there's a lot of things we don't know.
Right. Yeah. So kind of like shooting in the dark, because I'm like, under the 5 ways of service connection, how did you claim it? Did you have that evidence for each one of the 5 ways of service connection criteria? Did you have a CMP exam? Do you have a copy of the CMP exam? If you got a CMP exam, the doctor denied you. So what was the rationale for the negative opinion? What was your game plan before you submitted that 0996 for a high level review? And to get denied 3 times, there's so, you had some questions. I had some questions. There's so much more to unpack here. But as it pertains to incompetence that the VA blatantly denying you, we have to understand why they deny you. I've talked to veterans, and I'm like, well, hey, more than likely they put the medical opinion and rationale in the decision. That's what I would always do, because I wanted the veteran to know, hey, it's not me. I'm just the messenger. Mm-hmm. And they were like, oh, they didn't say it. I'm like, well, pull the rating decision out, read it. and it's right there. And they were like, oh, I didn't see it. You didn't see it because you didn't read it. You have to read it to understand. And my thing is, if you're filing a high-level review and you don't have a copy of your VA claims folder for full transparency, you're shooting at the dark. You are shooting at the dark because you need to see exactly what it is they see, So yeah, I just with this, I got like 5 or 6 questions, because it could be, I've talked to veterans and they were like, well, I had this, and this. And I'm like, well, where did it fall under the 5 ways to service connection? Well, I went to the VA and I got diagnosed. Okay. Does it fall under one of the 5 ways to service connection? Well, no, somebody said, and now it's like, we're so far off the beaten path at that point, trying to get back on the path and understand, just because you get diagnosed under VHA does not mean automatic service connection on the VBA, no matter how much evidence you have.
Yeah, that's a huge misconception. I'm glad you brought that up too. And I want to double down on what you said, because you said if you're going through a HLR, you need to get your claims file. I wholeheartedly agree. I'm going to double down and say any appeal, right? Supplemental, the board's not even a question. It would almost be a requirement at that point. But yeah, imagine going to court without evidence. That is what submitting an appeal without your claims file is. Right.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't go to court without evidence. You wouldn't submit an appeal without your C file. So does it take a long time? It does. But you need to start requesting that evidence now because you got to be on the same playing field. Okay.
But I have a video where I explain how to get it in like a couple of weeks. And it works. May not be a couple of weeks, but I think people have been telling me the average range has been between 3 to 6 weeks.
That's super fast. Absolutely.
So I got actually 2 videos where I talk about that in an interview where I interviewed a veteran that followed what I did. And I was like, let me see if this works. And over the past 2 years, people are saying, hey, I've been doing that and I've been getting that claims folder because you got 12 months and they're not going to extend that. I had a veteran real quick. He said he contacted who, maybe you were telling me this, we were talking. Where they said that they called the 800 number and they said, oh, we'll extend it. We'll extend your appeal period. And then they called back and they're like, no, we don't do that. We don't extend the 12 months. And the vet was thinking, but what if the vet actually, I got an extension. But now I'm thinking, did you get it in writing? And even if you got it in writing, it wouldn't work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And that's if that veteran was hard stuck on that extension period, they definitely lost out on at least 1 year of back pay. And so going from 90 to 100 would be a lot of money for that 1 year. All right.
Mm-hmm.
OJ Wild, thank you very much. He says, Clay and Dwayne, my 2 favorite VA claims YouTubers. See, right? We're not making this up. People love TheCIVDIV and KMD. Thanks for all you do for the veteran community. OJ Wild, thank you. Mm-hmm. We definitely appreciate that. Aubrey says, I filed for migraines secondary to PTSD with evidence to include the Nexus letter, was denied. CMP doc gave me rationale. Nexus letter was not mentioned in decision letter nor included in evidence list. What can I do? So off the bat, I'm thinking higher level review, right? And that is assuming that the Nexus letter was actually submitted with that claim. I would double check that. And then HLR would be my first just face value answer to that. I also would like to know, one, who did your Nexus letter, not the name, but the level of practitioner, right? We're talking like social worker NP. We're talking like board certified psychiatrist. And that's a huge gap. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So who did your private Nexus letter and then who did your CMP exam? Because depending on those answers, that would also be an argument for service connection. It just depends on how you would answer that, right? A psychiatrist's opinion is going to beat a social worker every single day of the week, assuming they looked at all the medical records, right? Something I see a lot of KMD is, especially on DBQs, when someone gets a DBQ from, wherever, not the VA, the evidence reviewed is very shaky. It's like, oh, well, I reviewed their VA medical records. It's like, okay, that's good. What about their service treatment records, right? And what about competing evidence? The second that all relevant evidence was not reviewed, that DBQ, that nexus means absolutely diddly squat because they didn't have the full picture.
Right.
Now, obviously, situations are going to dictate that, right? So
Right.
go ahead and take it away from there.
The actually, Clay, there's an M21-1 that states private doctors do not have to review all the evidence like VA CMP examiners. Now,
Yeah.
if I was doing a claim again, would I bet my hat on that? No. I'm making sure I have something like we talked about earlier. Be proactive, because if you have to go to that high level review, and most veterans don't know that reference, and then a broker say, hey, that's just a reference. It's not a regulation.
Mhm.
So I would make sure when you break it down in the review section, evidence review in the DBQ, VA claims folder / VA claims folder E folder, progress notes from VA Medical Center from this date to this date, service treatment records from this date, DD-214. So now, is that overkill? Yes. But if you have a VA employee, and I know I'm going to catch a lot of flack for this, that's not an advocate for veterans. I know this because I work with some, okay? I would rather have it and not need it opposed to needing it at a high level review and not have it.
Absolutely. It kind of goes back to what I said earlier about when you submit evidence with that claim, it's your cushion. The second you don't do that, you're taking away your ability to combat that in a higher level review specifically. So I'm fully down for everything you had just said. We have Old Dude. That's my kind of name right here. Okay, so awarded 70% 2 weeks ago. First, congrats. All right. Submitted claim with no help besides you guys' channels. That's even better. Congrats to you, ×2. CMP failed to note some of my symptoms that my private doc noted on a DBQ. Opinion if I should appeal for 100%. It depends are we talking about one disability at 100% or that's your overall ratings and there are, you have one claim that could have been higher. I think we're talking about mental health here. If I had to take a wild guess.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
For that, go ahead and what are your thoughts on this?
So what I used to do as a rater, and they still can do this, and a lot of them don't, and this is where you win your high level review. So if you submit that DBQ and you get that rating decision, and you submit a DBQ and you decide to go to a CMP exam, I refuse mine. If I submit a DBQ, I'm like, I'm not going because I already know that's the setup. That's the okie doke. That's what we used to call it, the okie doke. And I would see veterans go to the exam, which is okay. And if the doctor used the VA's CMP exam to grant the benefit, I'm assuming 70% too, and they say symptoms, I can use those symptoms from that second DBQ. I can actually combine both those DBQs and give the higher percentage. But I have to explain myself in the rating, not so much for the veteran, but for the QRT, because if they pull it, now I got to cover myself so I don't get an error, a quality error, right? But that's easy to do. What I've been seeing recently, no, which is okay, because if you know it, the veteran, that's the argument on the high level review. All evidence needs to be weighed. There is no equipoise here because there's no negative and negative. There's both positives, and those both of those positives can be used to grant the higher benefit, especially mental. Raters have the ability to look at the evidence. Oh, VBMSR says 70. Let me use this third-party DBQ to get the veteran to 100%. Or they could drop it down to 50. But again, the claims folder, having that CMP exam, knowing this going forward. So when you say symptoms, you look at the 100%, and hopefully you should already, like Clay said, submitted evidence stating you should be awarded that 100%. That's the argument on a high level review.
Absolutely.
In this case.
And you had said some golden nuggets there that I definitely want to point out. You had mentioned 70%, and then you mentioned one higher, one lower. That's the process that raters will go through. I'm sure you can talk about this way better than I can. But essentially, I'm going to talk about the human aspect to that. If I'm a rater, I'm working my 9 to 5. I have an automated system that tells me, hey, this veteran service connected, set 70%. I have 100 claims to do that day or whatever number it is. My performance is based on quantitative, meaning I need to get through claims. Am I going to spend the time to do that quality review and then bump it up to 100? Or am I just going to hit the button and go on to the next claim, right? And so just knowing that aspect, and I don't want to insinuate, all I'm saying is it's pretty likely that's what happened, okay? Especially if you have clear evidence of 100%. But I do want to point this out, though, because there's a lot that we don't know. When it comes to mental health, it's also subjective. So what one examiner would determine as total and social impairment, total and occupational and social impairment, may not be the way someone else does. It's very subjective. The proposed changes for mental health does seem to get rid of that subjectivity at least a little bit. But as it is right now, that's why you'll see, I guarantee your award letter says something like, hey, although you have symptoms of blah, 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 you most closely associate with 70%. And if you see that, then you know the rater looked at both and then looked at 70%. So it just depends, right?
Right. Actually, that verbiage, we don't type that in there. It's a computer generated, most closely reflects. We don't type that in there. It just, it populates when you select the 70%. But also when you say it's subjective, if you have symptoms of the 100% in the wording of your statement, I can use that. I can use that to bump that up. Now, again, the training these days, I just think it's just, and I've said on my channel, it's in the toilet. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if they, doing some type of training in old Kmart break rooms or, with old Apple IIc computers or what. I don't know what's going on. It's just crazy because think about this. When I was at Raider, it was DTRs, but not like today. I mean, every time I hear a veteran, how many times we hear tonight? DTR. And guess what happens? I did a video on this. It should be posted in a couple of weeks. The Raider is going to remand it back to the VSR or RVSR for them to probably screw it up again. So again, the evidence has to be there because it has to speak for you.
Absolutely. I'm a huge fan. Evidence-based claims are what I'm preaching all day, every day. We have a ton of donations.
I used to didn't preach it because I was like, oh, you can get by it. But now I'm on that fence down. I'm leaning the other way because it's rather have it and not need it and need it and not have it.
Word on the street is the VA is shoving raiders through training, and they're a numbers game now. So food for thought, right?
It's been that way. That's not. Well, I wouldn't say the shoving through training. When I went, I can still remember some of the trainers. One of my trainers saw me in the grocery store like a month ago, and I was like, "Is such and such still there?" And I'll just say this gentleman's name. So if anybody worked at 317 St. Pete, and you know this gentleman, Tony, I'm not going to say his last name. He was probably in the top 5 of trainers at that location.
Nice.
And he taught me how to research the M21 manual reference because we had to take tests every 2 years. And so he would show us how to put stuff on a desktop, hey, this is an update, look for this, look for that. And he's still there. I mean, he was super quiet, but he was awesome. So the training, I don't know. I think during COVID and after COVID, they were like, oh, we can do this stuff virtually. All this stuff you need to be in person. I'm sorry. Maybe you can get away with one day from home watching a bunch of videos. You need that one-on-one with those trainers. You have to.
Yeah. Good news is the VA is hiring, so go ahead and put your application in, right?
Yep. If you want that, high cholesterol and high blood pressure and worried about, I tell people this. That was when I was there, I think it was about 2 years before I retired. I purchased insurance on my job. You know how you have insurance on your car?
Mm-hmm.
It's a company called Starright. And this for any federal employee, Starright. And I was like, wait a minute, let me get this because I saw people getting fired for not meeting those quotas. I never had any issues. I think the longest I went 3 months to meet my quota, and my supervisors said, hey, my boss said you can't work any more overtime. I went in, I said, you don't have to worry about it. I'll never work a minute overtime ever again. And after that, I shot right to exceptional. And I had to rate a little bit different, because they kept the VA, the management, and I don't want to take too much time here, Clay, but
Yeah.
the VA's management thought process is how to, let's increase the quota to make the employees work faster and we'll reduce the backlog. Well, guess what shot up? Quality errors. Then it was like,
DTAs. Yep.
oh, let's do a pizza party for the team that raised the most cases this month. Guess what happened? Quality went up, DTA errors. And I'm like, that's the mentality. And I'm like, no, that does not work. I think systems, they come a long way. Like we used to use RBA 2000. I don't know if you ever heard of that. And then they transitioned over to VBMSR. So we didn't have to do as much typing. And then they had canned text that we could put in the rating decision to help with our times, and stuff like that. But when they start messing with those quotas and let's raise the quota, the quality, and the production quotas. And I'm like, well, I just got an error. It's June, and this error is from January. So now I'm on pins and needles because they still got to pull like 20 ratings over the previous 6 months. And so my anxiety level is through the roof because I'm like, if I get any more, I might lose my job. Veterans submitting 5,000 pages of evidence, so I can just go on and on. But yeah, if you want to get in that madness, go right ahead.
Go right ahead. All right, Air Force vet, thank you very much. He says 100% PNT. Congrats to you.
Yeah.
We're definitely glad. Like anytime I see veterans comment that's saying, "Hey, CIVDIV, you help me. Hey, KMD, you help me." That's the whole goal, right? We can make videos about this or that. Sometimes I do fun videos. Sometimes I do serious videos, but this is the goal here.
Yeah.
The Dusty Hunt, funny name there. Thank you very much. We definitely appreciate that. Maria says, thank you for everything, the both of you, for helping us navigate this crazy process. Absolutely. Thank you, Maria. We definitely appreciate that. And you're a member. So kudos to you. Tyler Autry, thank you very much. We appreciate that. John Sullivan. We got a lot of thank yous here. So I'm just going to go through them. Thank you. And Dwayne for all help get veterans. Okay. Thank you very much, John Sullivan. Appreciate that. I know John Sullivan is either in Israel or going to Israel here soon. So just take care of yourself. All right, big dog. Chandler. Okay, we got a question here. Thank you very much. And you remember. Appreciate that. Diagnosed with shoulder pain, dislocation at CMP exam, denied service connection, still within 1 year of separation, dislocated in service several times, but no evidence. Should I file higher level review? I want to hit on that 1 year window because people have a lot of misconceptions about that, and then I'll hand it over to you. So first off, the 1 year window does not mean everything's presumptive. There are some presumptives within 1 year, tinnitus and hearing loss being the most common. It doesn't mean it's presumptive. However, isn't it crazy how you've been out of the service for 6 months? You have this condition that clearly shows deterioration over a long period of time. That's why it's easier to service connect conditions within that 1 year time frame. For instance, if you have an impact, let's say I get in a car wreck, that is an impact. And so you can see damage. Hey, that happened. And since that date, now it's deteriorating. That's an impact condition versus I have no cartilage in my knees over the last 15 years because I was in the infantry doing patrols and now I've been out 3 months. And so that's what the 1 year window is really for. It's not presumption. It just made it seem like you had implied that. So I just want to get that out of the window. For everything else, KMD, what would you recommend this veteran do?
Look at 38 CFR 3.309 subpart A. If he had dislocation, there's possibly arthritis there. Arthritis is a 1 year presumptive. Get an x-ray, arthritis, it would be like filing a claim under the PACT Act, a presumptive. But again, you got to have that diagnosis and you have to know how to word it. You have to 38 CFR 3.309 subpart A, you give them those nuggets, and with that should let the VA employee, well, let me go look at this. Okay. But also when you get to the CMP exam, it is very important that you tell that CMP examiner, I am not claiming this as direct service connection. I'm claiming it as a 1 year presumptive, chronic arthritis. Okay. X-ray evidence show arthritis. And at that point, even as a former Raider, even if that examiner gave a negative opinion and I see that diagnosis of chronic arthritis, I can overturn that negative opinion and go ahead and grant on that basis, as long as I cover myself in the writing, the write-up, in the narrative, I am granting this benefit under 38 CFR 3.309 subpart A, 20%, long as I see pain.
Yep, absolutely. And it depends on what that diagnosis is, right? Sometimes it's not arthritis. Sometimes you can dislocate your shoulder, and now you have an acute diagnosis, which is not chronic, that's not a part of the big three. The big three is that chronic current diagnosis. That's a little bit subjective when it comes to shoulder dislocation. So it just really depends on what we're talking about here. But absolutely. So Bobby D is one of my favorite names ever. So I have 5 comments to my question, so my question would fit. Bobby D's, I'm gonna have to do some searching, but we're gonna come back to you, Bobby D's. I'm gonna put a star on your comment, and then because I'm gonna have to go search your comments here. GLO Management LLC with the what do you call that? The shameless plug there. Okay. After I've had a brain fart, right? After 22 years of service, I retired in 97. I was recently awarded 100 effective October 1, dated August of 23. Will my retirement pay affect my back pay? Go ahead.
No.
Yeah.
You're above you're above that 50% threshold. So yeah, you're good. You're gonna it'll just be, the intent to file date or data claim if you didn't have the intent to file. So yeah, not at all. You're good to go.
Yep. And just because you said that, I'm going to assume that you were not rated prior to this. You submitted claims and then you got 100% P&T after 22 years of service. So a significant time gap.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's unheard of, but it's definitely not common. So congrats to you, GLO Management LLC, with the other shameless plug, right? Okay. So Akai says, I met all of the big three. He had the prior question about the being denied and incompetent raters. I met all the three and thank hard evidence of the in-service event and examiner on the DBQ gave an at least as likely as not opinion. So straight up, based on what you said previously, and you have a favorable opinion, something's weird, right?
Yeah.
And we can't see your evidence, obviously, but something's weird. And that's my first thing. My second thing is you've been denied 3 times. A few of those were an HLR. So I assume you were denied. HLR, probably a supplemental, then probably an HLR on top of that. And I'm just guessing. And now you have a favorable opinion. That, to me, just because I want to give you something, I would go speak to an attorney, right? At some point, you go talk to an attorney. This might be that time for you. Do you want to add to anything?
Yeah, getting a second opinion. I would say when it comes to accreditation, I've always been kind of iffy with that because I used to work with, I think it was 6. We call them POAs. So if I say POA, VA employees call them POAs, but VSOs. Make sure I did a video where I talked about certain questions to ask them, how long have you been doing this? Do you pick up the phone? How long does it take for you to call me back? Because I've seen several VSOs, they take the test, do on the job training, and they screw claims up. For example, had a VSO, she would always file a claim for increase for tinnitus. I'm like, what are you doing? Oh, well, a nurse at the VHA said that the vet could get 60%. But now I'm thinking, okay, is it paragraph 29, paragraph 30? Is there any surgery involved? Nope, just increase. Well, let's look at the rating decision. What did that last sentence say? This is a maximum evaluation.
Yeah.
So all I'm going to do is see and see. So just make sure you're meeting with, if you decide to go accreditation, which is fine, that's your choice, make sure you ask some questions beforehand.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Yeah, and I think help is needed here at some level because something's off. Obviously, on YouTube live stream, we can't look at that for you, but something is happening that Dwayne and myself can't see.
Yeah.
Secret Sauce, thank you very much. He says the two people I started watching about VA disability now live together, and I'm 100% PNT. Congrats to you, Secret Sauce.
Yeah. You know what? I've never seen these many super stickers. These donations.
Yeah, I haven't either. This is
people saying, "Hey, I guess they're like, what took you all so long to do this?"
Well,
it's great.
We might have to do this again. Who knows? Okay.
Yeah. So if you all want us to do it again, let us know.
Yeah, share, like, comment, do all the stuff. Especially if we see traction to the stream, we're gonna do it again. Okay.
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
If it's a stream and it kind of like mellows out, then hey, no big deal, But yeah, if you want it again,
and the biggest thing, you get your questions answered for free.
Yeah,
you get your questions answered for free because they'll call me and they'll say or email me, "Hey, I just need to call you, ask you a quick question." You know how many emails and phone calls I get daily, and I used to be on the phone with people like 40 minutes, and it was just unsustainable because I'm like, I got 30 voicemails, and everybody got a quick question. When it comes to the VA, there's no such thing as a quick question. It's just not, because we're saying, we're reading stuff and we're coming back and saying, "Hey, what about this?" or "What about that?" And we're coming back with 4 or 5 questions, and then you may have 2 or 3 questions off each one of those. So this is a good way to get your questions answered for free, no problem. Just make sure you're precise when you're asking those questions.
Absolutely. Now, once we get through these super chats, we're going to go back to Gen Pop, right, and start answering some questions. Teacher Disciple, thank you very much. Seriously, that is dude, $50. You don't have to do that whatsoever, but we definitely appreciate it. Thank you very much. We see X Dollar Smash Savage. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Mr. Yodi says, not service connected yet, but I haven't yet. You have obstructive sleep apnea with the CPAP, chronic bronchitis and asthma, depression. So you have medical evidence for these. These are obviously diagnosed if you're taking medication for these, and have unexplained somatic pain. How can I get it connected to Tara? That is a great question. I'm going to start with just what I see here and kind of not talk about Tara if you want to take Tara. So first, sleep apnea, bronchitis, and asthma. The VA is going to be roping those together. There is a CFR code where you can see a higher rating for sleep apnea with asthma. It's extremely uncommon. So generally, you're going to see that 50% for sleep apnea, unless, of course, your asthma is above 50%, which, again, is not common. Bronchitis is included into that respiratory condition along with COPD. Depression, that's going to be its own claim. So that's really not going to be connected to Tara, at least. And have unexplained somatic pain, probably in that mental health route as well. How can I get it connected to Tara? That's the question piece. KMD, go ahead and take it from there.
So on the VA's website, I did a video on Tara. So you have to think about, okay, let's take CPAP, right? I mean, obstructive sleep apnea, chronic bronchitis, and asthma. You're dealing with something respiratory. So obviously at some point you inhale something, whether it's been smoke, fumes, or whatever. And in the video, I take you to the VA's website where they give you they're giving you the answer to the question. So you have to identify first how you're exposed to any solvents, inhalants, or anything like that that caused these conditions. Now, if you know the inhalants, the chemicals, whatever you were exposed to, Google them to see if they cause obstructive sleep apnea or chronic bronchitis. If so, you can make that connection that way. But check out that video. The VA has done an awesome job, I think, in updating and putting a lot of information on their website. It could be like a black hole sometimes because there's just so much information. But watching that video and going to the VA's website, or you just go to va.gov in the top left, type in TERA, and that link should pop up, and you'll see everything from radiation, vibration, solvents, different ways or different topics, and pick the ones that probably solvents or other particulate matter and go from there.
Yeah. And so something that I'll add is a part of these, your asthma is the only thing that's presumptive under the PACT Act. The other ones are not. And so if you rate PACT Act, asthma's a check mark. You already had the diagnosis. You're good there. Mm-hmm. But to speak on TERA specifically, when it comes to evidence for TERA, what I would recommend is to describe your exposure. Someone who was 200 meters away for a week, that's a lot different than the person who was in the burn pit, stirring human waste for 8 hours a day for 6 months. So the level of exposure, if that fits your scenario, I have no idea what your experience was, but I would definitely describe your level of exposure, especially if it was above average, right? Because that would bear more credence or a better argument for TERA. I will say this, TERA or sleep apnea connected TERA, I have seen that service connected via TERA about 3 or 4 times, but it is very uncommon. So food for thought. Mm-hmm. Okay. Kenneth Franco, thank you very much, says submitted claim for sinusitis with diagnosis and statement. Got my CMP exam appointment. A week later, they set me up with my VA primary care provider, and he asked me when started and what symptoms. That's it. 5 minutes. I'm in step 5. I'm worried. Help. Okay. A few things here. I want to know if you rate PACT Act. If you do and you have the diagnosis, a 5-minute appointment for sinusitis is completely normal. I know that sounds insane, but it is. And that assumes you had the evidence with that. When a CMP exam is ordered, what's supposed to happen is their CMP exam is supposed to fill the gaps. For a super easy claim like this, you're going to see your very, very fast CMP exams. And assuming they did not have to do a medical opinion because you would rate PACT Act, it's normal. I think the opposite's also true, KMD, where if you don't rate PACT Act and all we have to go off of is a 5-minute CMP exam, should he be worried? I'm not going to say that because we don't really know the claim, but it's definitely makes me not as comfortable if the claim was presumptive to begin with. What are your thoughts on this situation?
Yeah, I think a 5-minute exam is entirely too short, and here's why. And I'm going to put some ownership back on the veteran. If you look at the general rating criteria for sinusitis, you need to go look at that first before you even get into that CMP exam. Because if the doctor was to ask me, hey, you have anything to add? Yeah. Hey, I noticed you didn't ask me questions on the DBQ. I'm taking corticosteroids, have a bronchodilator on home oxygen, or whatever it is, you need to be stating if if it's 30, 60% criteria you think you fall under, those are the things that you need to be talking about. And that's going to take more than 5 minutes. But I hear that a lot. Oh, it took 5 minutes. I'm like, what questions did you ask? What did you give the examiner from the diagnostic code criteria that you meet with the evidence that you have that's a record? That's important, because if you get one of these new examiners and they be like, oh yeah, let me check that box. That could be the difference between a 60 and a 40%. And if you're up around 93, 92, 93%, that could be enough to get you to that could be enough to get you to that 95% threshold.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought up new examiners. I am a fan of the VA is not the enemy, although sometimes they make it very easy to say that, right? However, I am a fan of CMP examiners are the enemy. because you have your new examiners. I can't tell you how many CMP exams veteran has sent me where it lists the experience level and it always says less than 1 year. I'm like, okay, that changes the game because now veterans need to be more active. I'm so glad you brought that up. But every now and again, you do have good CMP examiners out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so something to also consider, which may not be true, it may be, we have no idea. If you had the evidence and the examiner looked at that, they could have very well completed that prior to your exam or after your exam. So it just depends. My first question is, did you submit evidence with your claim? If you did, I think you're in good hands. If you did not, I think it's another indicator of maybe it's not going to turn out so hot. But I'm hoping you are presumptive because that would be a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Wink, thank you very much. Another $50 donation. Seriously,
Wow.
no one has to do this. I'm trying to get through the super chats, but every time we answer one gets added. So
I'd never
sorry.
in all of 4 or 5 years of YouTube, I'd never seen this many on one live stream. Never.
4 or 5 years, dude. That's I just hit 2 years in August, but 4 or 5 years
Really?
is pretty awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Also from me to you, KMD, thank you for your service. After service.
Hey, likewise.
After service, right? So
Likewise.
For you, it was Army, VA, and now YouTube helping veterans. So that's a lot of, if YouTube was a federal position, you would have a lot of federal service, right?
I tell people, I wrote a book. I wrote this book because people were just asking questions. And there's a lot of stuff in here that you can find online, but it's like I downloaded it here. But there's also a lot of stuff that's in here that I've learned over the years. A lot of people have been saying, hey, I've been following you on YouTube for a couple of years. I got the book. And by the way, I used the coupon code and I'm at 100%. And I've never talked to them on the phone.
Nice.
And I'm like, I'm fine with that. Now, take the book, give it to another veteran. That knowledge that you have, go help that other veteran so they don't have to call me. I'm okay with that. You got to pay it forward, And so one thing that I tell people, one reason why I think their claim gets denied, and you let me know if you agree with this, Clay, or not.
Mm-hmm.
They don't invest the time to get educated. They don't invest the time to get educated on the process and how that process can impact what they're doing with their claim.
Yeah, so I am so on board with you. Something that I say a lot is veterans have two options. There's no middle ground. Mm-hmm. You either talk to a VSO or you do it yourself, or you go through a company that's completely irrelevant. If you do not do the research yourself, you're at the whim of whatever option you choose, right? Mm-hmm. When you go to your CMP exam, you're at the CMP examiner's mercy. That's when you don't do it or don't educate yourself, which sometimes that can work out. Sometimes it can't. So that's one option. Option two is you understand the VA claims process as it pertains to you, right? So you don't have to understand the -1, every single diagnostic code in 38 CFR, just as it pertains to you. Hey, why do I think my left knee is service connected? Oh, because I have evidence from my pre-deployment health assessment of my knees don't hurt. Then when I came back, I have knee pain and it's there. That is solid in-service event, right? And so now when you're armed with your own evidence, I speak to my VSO, I submit it online by myself. I'm able to speak through that. More importantly, when I go to the CMP examiner, the examiner says, hey, talk to me about your knee. Oh, well, I have a post-deployment health assessment from 2014 that says knee pain. And just by you even speaking that, you're essentially doing the examiner's job for them, but that's only possible if you educate yourself, right? You don't have to understand every single thing that a VA rater like KMD knows, just as it pertains to you. So I seriously, I could not agree more.
Yeah.
All right, so we have. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say you brought up about working with VSOs, and you said another company. One thing I want to point out, I'm a consulting company. There's certain things I do and there's certain things that I don't do. And just like I said, as VSOs, attorneys, if you want to use them, fine. If you use any company, you still need to be asking questions.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, how do you charge? I know that's a big, I don't want to get into it tonight, but that's a big controversy out there. And I've been hearing people, when I first started my business, people was like, well, wait a minute. Are you going to charge me 15, 16? I'm like, where are you getting these numbers from? What are you talking about? And then they explained it to me. And I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, what? You know, I'm like, no, no, we don't even, it was crazy. We had one veteran, and I'll be real quick, end up getting service connected. And when I learned about this, what they call it, 5X, 6X, I guess.
Yeah.
And he
Say it ain't
says,
so. Yeah.
yeah, he says, well, I can take this back pay that, you know, when I took your education to pay this other company this 10 grand. I'm like, whoa, you did what? And I was like, and I couldn't get past that. And he showed me the service agreement. I'm like, you have to ask questions. You have to be careful what you're signing, because that is important, or you might be on the hook. But I didn't want to go off on that.
Yeah, dude, you're preaching to the choir right now.
But just understand who you're working with. And another thing you need to be educated on as well, because if somebody's telling you, I can guarantee you something, that is a huge red flag. I guarantee people this. If you don't invest the time to read what's pertaining to you and your claim, the chances of you being successful go way down. That's as far as I'm going to go with guaranteeing
Absolutely.
Yeah. Guarantee that, oh yeah, you can get 100%. Nope. Stay away from that one like a hot stove.
Absolutely. So Wink, thank you very much. He said served in the Marine Corps Reserves and National Guard. Even though I had 3 deployments, I didn't think I deserved benefits. That is a very, very common theme, especially for the reserves and guard. It's that feeling of I don't deserve it. And you have deployments, which is insane. But you two helped me get over myself, and now I'm service connected at 50% with 2 conditions waiting to be decided. Congrats. Wink.
Yep.
And I would say you're at 50%. You have 2 more conditions that need to be decided. I would keep going until you're properly rated, right?
Yep.
Whatever properly rated looks like for you, I would not stop. And if it's 50%, it's 50%. If it's 90, it's 90. If it's 100, it's 100.
And if anybody says, "Oh, we can get you to 100," you don't just.
I'd much rather say we can get you properly rated, right?
Right. You cross the street. Nope, don't do it.
All right. David Ramos says legacy appeal was remanded in January 1st of this year, or January of this year. CMP exams completed in April, been told in decision phase, and legacy appeal filed to 2016. In your opinion, how long have you seen remands take? A long time.
Yes.
The good news is yours is in the queue, right? You had your exam, and so it should be soon. The issue is that soon word doesn't come with a time date group, right? Do you have anything to add to that?
Expect to wait. It could be it could be working in now. It could be this time next year. I would, in the meantime, I would submit that FOIA request to get a copy, because you want to see exactly the remand. And like when the DT8 era, it's sort of like a remand, because that DRO is kicking it back to that VSO or RVSR. And so the judge is kicking it back to a regional office saying, hey, you guys screwed up. You need to do this, this, and this. And so when you get that, you can see if that FOIA request, if you get it and there's a 2507 medical request, that's the request for a CMP exam. So it's moving to the next stage. Then you got the CMP exam, you've had the CMP exam, and then it's going back to the regional office to get rated. And that's where it's going to sit. And it could be a week or it could be 1 year.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Kenneth Franco says he did not ask me the important questions on the DBQ. I think that was in reference to the sinusitis discussion we had. One of 2 things, Franco, and I'm just going to be straight up with you, kind of blunt. The CMP examiner sucked, or you had evidence where the examiner then the examiner is good at that point. You had evidence and the examiner did their due diligence. My counter question to you is, what is your evidence, right? And that would kind of give a good indicator. I still wouldn't say you need to worry or freak out. The claim's already in the process. Just hang out, chill. If you know you did not submit evidence, you know what I would do? I would go get evidence and prepare for that appeal. And if that's the case, do that. But you're in the waiting game now. There's really nothing you can do about it except for prepare for the appeal. Do you have any thing to add to that?
No, you're spot on. It's getting the evidence, being proactive. So when you
Proactive,
go
yeah.
back and submit that supplemental claim, you already have the new and relevant evidence, but still, that's where that claims folder come in. It's going to help you with that to be better prepared. But also go back and think about how you claimed it. And like Clay said, if it's under big three, what evidence was of record, under the 5 ways of service connection. And there's nothing wrong with taking a couple of steps back to go 10 steps forward. Okay. And it doesn't, when we say, the big three and this evidence, that's not a lot. You got to understand, what was your foundation? How did you claim it? What evidence was a record? And then you can get back on track if you didn't follow what Clay and I were talking about as it pertains to the evidence that's already in your file.
Absolutely, for sure. All right, P47W. Okay, says I can't find the info, but what's the definition of constant systemic therapy when it involves skin conditions? Appreciate the info. I'll talk on skin conditions. I'll tell you straight up, I don't know the definition of constant systemic therapy, but I've had my fair share of skin treatments to involve creams, which absolutely suck. Also, if you do have creams in a skin condition, it's very likely that you can be awarded the clothing allowance. Just keep that in your back pocket the next time that pops up, right? And then one of the most common and very, very strong therapies for skin conditions is a medication called Accutane that has a ton of secondaries connected to Accutane. It's heavily regulated, not just by the VA, but by the medical community at large. And so if you're on Accutane, I would really start looking at other conditions that you may have stemming off of Accutane, because that would be a very solid, easy secondary to medication. Do you want to add to the...
Yeah, I found it. It's in the M21-1. I love it. I use it like Google. The M21 states systemic therapy such as corticosteroids or other immunosuppressive drugs. The term systemic therapy that is contained in the general rating formula for the skin and in certain additional diagnostic codes under 38 CFR 4.118 refers to treatment that is administered through any route, orally, injection, couple of other ones, other than the skin. That's the definition. So if you think you meet that criteria, and that's why I tell people when they ask me a question and I'm like, I have to go look it up. It takes time. Use the M21-1. I think in my membership group, I gave a block of instruction on it. And Clay, when I first started my business, I used to give these classes for free. What makes a DBQ actionable sufficient? How to research the M21-1. Couldn't get anybody in the classes. I started charging $4.99, $9.99.
You got people in there.
And I'm talking about the same stuff. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Use that M21-1, type these keywords in. And when Clay was reading the question, I just typed it in. Boom, there it is. There it is. And if you meet that criteria, where are you going to go and get evidence? There you go.
Yeah. And most likely, if you meet that criteria, the diagnosis is there because you're in treatment. So really you're looking at the basis of connection. Is it secondary? Is it direct? Is it aggravation? All of those will kind of dictate what other evidence you need to get for your claim.
So systemic therapy is no creams that you're applying, not like Bengay or something like that. You're injecting, having some type of, I know people with severe what is skin condition starts with an E? Eczema.
Eczema.
They
Yeah.
take some type of steroid or some type of oral medication, and that meets that criteria.
Yep. All right. Joe Polero, thank you very much. We definitely appreciate that. Eric Hinkle says, been doing all of my filings myself with only help from heroes like you two. Thanks for all you do. Thank you very much. You know,
like I said, you can do it yourself.
appreciate it. Yeah.
You can do it yourself. Just invest that time.
You know, one thing I do like to say when the VA gets things right, believe it or not, the VA.gov and the veterans' ability to file their own claim, the VA got that right.
Yeah.
It is stupid easy to file a claim online. You don't even need to know a 526 or 95 or 96. It does it for you. Hey, what's the basis of service connection? Is this direct? Is it secondary? Is it an appeal? Are you disagreeing with a decision? And it walks you through that. So
you know what, Clay? I wouldn't submit if I did my claim. I wouldn't do it that way.
I would not either, believe it or not.
I would not.
But it is easy. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They do make it easy. And I think it's a good system compared to when I first filed mine years ago. And that 526EZ online was like 20 pages.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I wouldn't file it that way is because I want to keep a copy of it. And I would still want it housed on the VA's website. So when you do a quick submit claim, you log back in, it's there, and you have that physical copy, because I've seen veterans claims not go through.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a record. They didn't get an email confirmation. So I would download the 526EZ on my computer, fill it out myself, sign it, print it out, sign it, or rescan it, upload it, and that way you have that copy. So if for some reason the system crashes, whatever, you got that and the email from Quick Submit. And we've actually used, when veterans would fax it in, I've actually used the effective date from that fax as data claim. You know, so you got a record. It's evidence, right? You got evidence that you filed that claim.
Absolutely. And quick submit is just as easy. If you can upload a picture to Facebook, you can use quick submit. It's that easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the VA got those right. I like to, give props. It's easy to bash the VA, so I like to give props when props are due.
Yeah.
River Parish Rattlers. What's up?
Sounds
Thank you very much. We definitely
sounds like
appreciate
a mascot.
All right. Akai says the letter doesn't. I provided all three things needed. Yeah, this is on the 3 HLRs. Yeah, man. At some point, you need to get help. I can tell you just straight up from a YouTube live perspective, right now, there's nothing that we can do for you because we really need to see the evidence. Like, seriously. And when I say evidence, I mean the VBMS. What's in your C file is what we would need to see. Obviously, we can't do that. But at some point, you do need, once it gets to a certain level, you might want to consider reaching out to someone.
You gotta have that CD.
All right, Jason Silva. That's awesome that you have that right there. Says, I've been avoiding KMD98 because of Clay's disdain for claims companies. That's a great comment right now. Good to know there's some good ones. Yeah, so on that, and the elephants in the room, I'll just talk about it. There are good claims companies out there, and there's nothing wrong with it. I've always said that I fully believe a veteran should have choice. Absolutely. The issue is when it becomes predatory. That's a little different, right?
Yeah.
And so I'll just mention one of many indicators. There's a whistleblower court case right now that indicates, and I'm going to use specific language on this because I don't want to get in trouble. There's a court case of whistleblower report from a person who worked at a certain company that talks about the verbiage is almost always, no matter what the situation is, the company would force the veteran to go depression secondary to chronic pain, send that person to a specific provider who was also affiliated with that company, and almost always came back at 50% or higher. And so you look at that happening 100 times, there's a million claims that's going to happen almost always. So like 95% of the time, something's weird there. Now, I don't want to go too deep into it because it just gets, the more you clean, the more dirt you find. But there's a difference between predatory and then good actors, right?
Right.
You want to add to that?
I think, you know, because people have called me claim shark a lot. And I'm like, well, do you know what I do and what I don't do? We used to do what is called educational packets. And that were flat rate. And we had a 98% success rate. We didn't represent the veteran. We didn't ask the veteran for the social security number. We didn't ask the veteran for the login information. We didn't submit any claims. We didn't tell veterans, you have to go see this doctor. You have to go see that doctor. If they had a DBQ, we would look at it only to tell them if it was actionable and sufficient per the 38 CFR. We know doctors, but we tell veterans, you go see who you want to see. It is totally up to you. And we've had veterans not pay us. And I'm like, fine, not a problem. And they were always the ones that got the 100%. And so our basic educational packet was, I think, $21.99. And then the highest one was, I want to say 51 that we never sold. That we never sold. So people were getting 10, 15, $20,000 in back pay. And if there was one of our basic packages, it was $21.99, that's all they paid. And then if they had questions on high level review, there was no additional charge for that.
Yeah.
You know, and I would do, it was a local community college. I did a free veteran presentation for over 5 years. No charge. I would tell people, hey, on YouTube, hey, get in that. You can ask me questions. Rarely would people show up. Every Thursday, it's another nonprofit fraternity other than mine that I've been a subject matter expert in that for over 2 years. And don't you know, I only recognize 3 people from YouTube, and I've talked about it, and it's free. You know, I've done I did a free event last year that companies hired me to come in and do it for their employees. So it's free to their employees. We had I'll never forget, it had 532 people sign up. 154 people showed up. It was free. So I do a lot of things out there that's free. And I just this week I asked you, I said, hey, you know, something with Native Americans. I was like, hey, let's, if you can, let's do it. But I don't know what it is. Some veterans in free, it just don't, it don't, you know, it doesn't make it, I don't know. It's like kryptonite, right? Yeah. So when I get called that, I ask them, I just ask people, so why do you say that? You know, what reason? Oh, well, you're charging people 5X, 6X. Where I've never done that. That wasn't my pricing model. Where do you get that from? But at the end of the day, again, like you stated earlier, work with who you want to work with, but ask questions. If you're signing something, read it. When I went to the doctor the other week, I'm sitting there reading everything, asking questions. Wait a minute. If I sign this, what does that mean? Every time I take my car to the dealership to get an oil change, I'm reading that. Because I'm signing it. I could be saying, hey, you could trade my truck in and give me $2, and I sign that. Now I got to go to court. You know what I mean? It's just, you got to look at that stuff. You got to understand, you know, who you're working with. Go out there, look at the Google reviews or whatever. That's something I think you probably kept up more than me, because I'm doing some other things, and just to, you know, spend time on checking on this company or this person and seeing what they're doing. But yeah,
it's wild out there. You don't want to look. It's wild.
18 grand gets stuck. It gets stuck right here. I'm like, who's doing your claim? Jennifer Lopez or somebody? I'm like, what?
Seriously,
you know?
12 grand, 15 grand, 18 grand to charge. That is, we've crossed the line way too much. That's a clear difference. Also, and we'll just take this at face value because I want to get into it. We'll keep answering questions. The VA OIG would not be testifying to Congress constantly about fraudulent DBQs and entities who are altering DBQs if it was not a thing. Food for thought, right?
And I think with that, veterans should be held accountable too, because if you know that somebody is written a DBQ for you for something that you know that you don't have,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you got to take some accountability for that too. It's you know, you got to look at, you know, just you just got to be smart. You know, I understand that you want to get service connected, you serve, you wore the uniform, and I have no doubt that you would be successful if you invest the time, read, you know, understand what you're trying, what you want to do, where does it fall in that criteria, go get the evidence. You can fight that all day long, and eventually it's going to land on somebody's desk that's an advocate, and you're going to win.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go out there and you know that you're having somebody complete a DBQ and just to be throwing something up against the wall, that could be a problem.
Is what it is. That's what, you know, fraud's fraud, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
So great topics today.
Yeah.
David Thompson says, between Clay's YouTube video and Dwayne's book, I worked hard and was awarded 100% P&T. Congrats. We're definitely
Man.
glad to just be a part of that journey with you. My mental health rating was secondary to my DDD. That's also extremely common. That's the depression secondary to chronic pain I had just mentioned. Will my mental health rating be reviewed since it's attached to a permanent condition? Two things here. A condition that's static has no bearing on the other condition, right? Once it's service connected, it's
Clay, can you say that again, please? Just
I
say
know.
it again. Say it again.
If you have a static condition or a non-static condition and you get something secondary, once service connection is established, that no longer matters. It's individual, right? One. Two, your P&T, which means your static conditions are at least 95%. I'm willing to bet all of your conditions are static. You can relax, dude. You made it. You're good. You're fine.
What did that drill sergeant say in Full Metal Jacket? 0500. You made it.
Yeah. You're good. What percentage confident are you guys that the mental health changes will go into effect April 25? How likely is it that changes won't happen? I'll answer the second question.
Yeah.
I think the changes are very likely to happen for sure because the DSM-5 criteria has changed. So real quick, the VA does not make these changes. They're falling in line with the medical standard, right? Same thing with the tinnitus, the sleep apnea thing. That's a little different because they're changing the criteria base. But the mental health is from DSM-5. So the VA is essentially falling in line. So I do think it's extremely likely to happen. My bet is going to be summer of next year. It could be very well be 3 years from now. Who knows? Okay. What are your thoughts on all of that?
I saw it's a website out there. It wasn't a VA website where they were saying, April 2025.
Probably the Fed reg, yeah.
Right. Keep in mind, and I've seen this happen, and people say, oh, I got until March. No, you don't. The VA gave you a heads up 2.5 years ago. People have been talking about this on YouTube. So you had 2 years to get tinnitus. If you don't get it by next April, let's just say, if they do implement it then, that's on you. Because by this time, you'd have had 3 years. I've seen where the VA have made a change. It'll be, let's say, April. And they'll put it in the regulation effective January 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Don't wait. Because, people say, well, what are they going to do with it? Don't know. We don't know what the instructions are. Don't wait on the instructions. Get it service connected now. If you have it and you've been trying, that way you're grandfathered in.
Yeah. And of note, because you brought up the changes and there was a comment period. Right now, constrictive bronchitis is going through the same exact thing. And what makes it relevant is someone asked the VA secretary at a press conference about that comment period. which is a good indicator that the VA secretary is very well attuned to that comment period. And so the constrictive bronchitis is probably going to take a while, just like all these are, but changes are constantly happening. The only reason people talk about mental health is because the YouTubers are talking about it. The VA is not out here, got this on a poster. So now don't wait. I love how you just said that for sure. Drew Beal, thank you very much. We definitely appreciate that. Ricardo Barberry says, does an examiner have to be licensed to do a CMP by the state they're doing their exam in? The answer is yes, and the answer is the CMP examiners have a process through the VA to be a CMP examiner. It's not like I want to be an examiner. Okay. A friend who had an examiner out of state license was expired in the state, but they were licensed from a different state. That's because it's not healthcare. Right. It's a legal exam. And so the answer is yes, no, depending on talking about the VA or the actual state. Do you have any thing to add to that?
No, you nailed it. The only thing, some VA employees are using that 100-mile, I don't even call it a 100-mile rule, which I totally disagree with, because I've known veterans to go to a CMP examiner over 100 miles away. Mm-hmm. So it's like a contradiction. And the one way to combat that on high-level review, especially during COVID, a lot of people start doing online, especially mental health, start doing online mental health therapy. If you move from LA to go to Chicago or DC or New York, somewhere on the East Coast, right? You may want to keep that same examiner in LA just because you feel comfortable, and you may be doing it by video. That is okay. And there's special instructions on when a video exam can be conducted and when it can't. So definitely make sure you understand that, especially if the rater puts pen to paper about that 100-mile rule. I would combat that every time. I think that is so, I'll just say stupid. I don't know what else to call it.
I could not agree more. And it's funny you mentioned the 100-mile rule, because that's also an indicator of fraud the VA OIG uses, which is one I actually disagree with as well. Mm-hmm. Because I don't want to call it the VFW too hard here. Someone had a CMP exam that was 62 miles away, which sucks. And that person had made some calls to friends in high places, like the SCS of CMP exams, to get that rescheduled, because he has the contacts that not everyone else has.
Yeah.
After that, I was like, hey, if you had a long CMP exam, send me what you have. I would love to share that. I had many veterans send me CMP exam requests or CMP scheduled appointments over 100 miles. And the highest one, Dwayne, was 168 miles away. Could you imagine for a CMP exam? And that's probably going to last 5 minutes, by the way, driving 168 miles one way.
It's great.
Dude, reimbursement or not, that's unsat. That should not be the case.
When DBQs first came out, I was working at the VA, and I remember seeing, and this doctor, his name just came in my head. I don't want to say this online. But it was veterans here. I'm in the Tampa area, and they were getting DBQs done out of Puerto Rico. And we had a training, and they were like, yeah, you can use them. It's just make sure they're sufficient. Mm-hmm. And we would look at it. And one thing that I look for, it's been times I didn't even look at the doctor's MPI number. Russian. But if I saw something, I think one time I called the number and I just asked, do you have a doctor there on staff by this name? They said, yep. And that was it, because that doctor can't give me any information, especially if you haven't completed a medical release. So there's references that states, call the doctor and have them to, if there's any inaccuracies you feel on the DBQ, call the doctor and get clarification. That doctor shouldn't talk to you if you haven't given them permission. Mm-hmm. So even though the VA says, yeah, VA employee, go do this, or you can do it, but you may not get the answers that you want. But yeah, so we had doctors, in Puerto Rico, and I just looked it up, and they were certified, in Puerto Rico, and I was like, okay, and training department said, yeah, use it, and we used it. And I think most trainers will say, even if it's over 100 miles, they will say, yeah, go ahead and use it. But, for veterans, and I've seen veterans say, well, I'm flying to go see this doctor. It's perfectly fine. But again, like you said earlier, fraud, if somebody's doing something and, if it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Okay. Just use your better judgment. And if you feel that it's fraud, just, hey, just go to your private doctor and say, hey, this is what I need. Can you help? And they may say, yeah, and you may have to just pay a copay, but again, just stay away from anything that's like, if it's too good to be true, then it is.
Yeah. I'm just imagining what it's like to be a physician in Puerto Rico, making bank in Puerto Rico, right? Dude, they figured out the cheat code right there.
Yeah.
That's it.
This was years ago. This is about 15. I won't say 15, but yeah, it's been years ago. And like I said, the quality department was like, yeah, you can use it, yeah. So I'll just leave it there.
All right. Van Glorious says, Operation Desert Storm Vet, thank you for your service there. I've never filed a claim. Well, you're in the right place, dude. Okay. I've suffered from mental health since leaving military. Is it too late? Did I wait too long? The answer is no to both. Okay. However, and I want your thoughts on this, Dwayne. When I look at significant time gaps, because we're talking early 90s right now, when I'm looking at significant time gaps, first, I'm always preaching evidence-based claims, submit evidence with your claims.
Yep.
But that time gap kind of exacerbates that. You really need to submit evidence with your claim because you're also combating continuity of symptoms. You're going to want a statement that talks about continuity of symptoms. And since you are filing a claim for mental health, don't just go one claim. Really look at what is currently diagnosed, what stems from service, and then get everything all out at once. What are your thoughts, Dwayne?
When I rated, and I can say several other raters on my team, mental health, Operation Desert Storm, I'm claiming PTSD due to fear of hostile military terrorist activity. I'm looking at the DD-214, or the Army, we call them 201 files, something to show that you were there. I'm scheduling an exam. Now, the examiner is going to be looking at what you just said, that time period. And again, and I had to explain this to my CMP examiner, my first one. He said, Dwayne, you only seen in service a couple of times for this condition. And, a couple of times outside of service, and you've been out X amount of years. I'm like, hey, look, I was in a combat unit. I couldn't say time out. Let me go get this documented. And it was pressure on me all the time. Suck it up, drive on, suck it up. You run in and you hood and all this other stuff, and trying to be Rambo, and you're just sucking it up. And I told him, I was like, and still I don't go to the doctor when something hurts. If I did, I would probably be in the doctor's office weekly about something. I said, so that's the mentality I had in the service, and I still have that mentality. Like Rambo said, you just can't turn it off. That's something that at least for me, I couldn't turn it off. I still suck it up. If I'm doing yard work or something, my knee gets to hurt. I'm like, well, another hour, you can explain it that way, but you have to be thinking of that way, especially when there's that gap. But I'm going to drop a huge nugget here, Clay. You let me know if you agree with this.
Yeah.
800-827-1000. I want to do intent to file for compensation. That gives you 12 months. Every month, start going to the doctor, building, getting that evidence, and then submit that claim. If, that's worst case scenario, that's another way.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. A lot of things I see is veterans think claim. And once they do the intent to file, it's like, oh my gosh, I need to submit right now.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like, hey, I already had my CMP exam. I have more evidence to submit. And every time I see that, just know I'm figuratively strangling you when I'm at my desk, right? I was like, oh, you should have submitted that. That's literally what the intent to file is. That's its sole purpose, is to allow the veteran to gather the evidence. The VA encourages fully developed claims or as close to that line as you can get. So yeah, take advantage of it. I could not agree more. Right.
And I think people, they don't understand what a fully developed claim is. Because I'll get, and I don't know if you get this, they'll say, well, I submitted a fully developed claim and they still denied me. A fully developed claim, one, is no longer a priority, as about a year and a half ago. And if you read the instructions, pages 1 through 7 of the 5260Z, it tells you the difference between a standard claim and a fully developed claim. A fully developed claim, what you're telling the VA is, hey, go ahead and move forward. I have nothing else to submit. That's it. It doesn't mean favorable findings, automatic service connection. You're just telling the VA, go ahead and move forward to the next step. I have nothing else to submit. That's it. That's the only thing what a fully developed claim is.
Yep. All right. But Vanglorious, absolutely educate yourself, get on that. I would gather your evidence, do the intent to file today. You can log on va.gov, start a claim. It'll take you 2 minutes, probably 5 minutes because you're going to have to log in, right, to do the intent to file. All right. John McDonough, are you related to Dennis McDonough? That's my first question. Right. Thank you very much. I definitely appreciate that for sure. All right, Kendra Jones, thank you very much. We appreciate that. Michael McCaffrey, thank you. We have Finding Finley. All right, we got to get through these chats.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have a hard stop time? Just
no.
Okay.
No. You know, me and David, 12 hours. We did.
Yeah. Hey, that's I can't. That's all y'all. You can take that one. You beat me to that punch there.
That was a lot of planning, man. That was a lot of planning going in, but we did it.
All right. You know what? That might be what we have to do because we have 431 chats that I haven't even looked at and 63 chats
63
of super chats.
Yeah, we could do I call it when Dave and I do it, I call it a speed round.
Yes, we're gonna have to
go through these. Yeah.
All right, Mr. Yodi says deployed to UAE and Bahrain 6 months each around the burn pit as a heavy duty vehicle mechanic, fuels hydraulic. I explain it to them. I don't know what your question is here, but I can tell you this: you do rate the conditions under the PACT Act, right? Your most common sinusitis, rhinitis, asthma, but anything PACT Act related, and I believe UAE and Bahrain is on both. The
they are
90 timeline and the post 9/11 timeline. So you should, presumption is not going to be an issue for you.
Yeah.
All right. Secret Sauce says, nah, KMD98 is the OG for me. I first discovered him. Okay. Then I found Clay. Awesome. And Dr. Sharma. Dr. Sharma is a psychiatrist. Yeah. This is crazy. I've been waiting for you two to collaborate for a long time. Well, hey, we're here.
You have it. Yeah.
We are definitely here.
Yeah. Thanks for the support.
Okay, Jesus UCSB. Okay, you guys are cool. I'm a tanker. I saw my claim as at rating stage. CMP examiner told me you were definitely full of evidence. That is a amazing indicator. If your examiner, one, they shouldn't really be saying that, to be honest with you. Yeah. But if your examiner is saying that, that tells me they're probably seasoned a little bit, okay? Because they understand the criteria for service connection, at least from their perspective. But hey, you got evidence. I'm not going to argue with that, right?
Yeah. I would say you got to see it to believe it, because I've had people, it's like, oh, yeah, I had a really cool examiner. I don't understand what happened. I got denied. They gave you a negative opinion.
Yep.
So they weren't really cool at all. They're really cool at all. So in that case, for me, I would always have to see it to believe it. But I do hope it goes well for you.
Yeah. And is it a good sign? I think so. But absolutely, you know, it's really hard to tell someone no when you're looking right at their face, right?
Yeah.
All right. So Loco, a bunch of numbers. Thank you very much. We definitely appreciate that, Loco. Jamie Hancock, thank you. Vicky Buchanan. Will sleep apnea supplemental be denied for weight gain from decreased activity from service connection bilateral shin splint? CMP examiner said it would be because I can cut calories. Will my tera be auto considered? Okay. That's a lot.
Yeah.
You look like you want to give an answer first. Go ahead.
So I'm assuming it's a supplemental claim. You had doing relevant evidence. Somebody saw you had enough to get to the CMP exam. So, yeah. And since it's obstructive sleep apnea, I would assume that if they're doing an intermediate step
Yeah,
for
yeah.
weight gain, if it's a denial and it's obstructive sleep apnea, they should, before they make a decision, also consider under terror as well.
Yep, for sure. One thing I will say, and I don't want to be doom and gloom here, bilateral shin splints for the masses, meaning the overwhelming majority, is going to be rated at 0% because it's very treatment based. If you look at the CFR criteria, I think the highest rating is 10 and 20% for shin splints. I could be wrong. But then there's also the loss of use that comes into play.
Yep.
And so if you're at a 0% for shin splints, just based on what that means for how bad they are, that might be a difficult argument to say shin splints is leading to your weight gain versus something else.
Yep.
On the opposite's true. If it is severe shin splints, then you have a better argument. So it just depends, like, how bad are your shin splints, right? It totally depends on that. They would have to be pretty bad, just to be straight up with you.
Clay, how many people do we have in here tonight? I'm curious.
We have
I can't see it on my end.
557, but that number has bounced
back and forth.
Yeah, we hit 700 at one point.
Whoa.
And it just.
Have you ever had 700 before? I don't think I've ever had 700.
No, this is the highest stream.
Wow.
Everything I've got. We're record breaking right now.
Wow.
We have 64 super chats, which is unthinkable.
Yeah.
Okay. It's insane, dude. We might Dwayne
might be ongoing. Yeah.
Most once a month or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
All right. Vinny, thank you very much. HVAC Mike. I love that name. I think that's hilarious. Good LLC name if you're in the HVAC business, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I support both of you guys' channels. Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I have Dwayne's book. Hey, look at that. And a few one-on-ones with Clay. Okay, cool. Keep up the good work. Where could I find my intent to file date online? There's a few ways. Dwayne, do you want to answer where he can find his intent to file date?
Yeah, so you should be able to go to va.gov. I did a video how to log in, and they should have sent you a document. And if you no longer have that document, you could go log in. And forgive me if I can't. I know it's va.gov, but I don't know which link to click on. And you can download every document that the VA has ever sent you.
Yep.
And that document should be in there about the intent to file date, especially if you call the 800 number and you did it. You should have gotten something a couple weeks later in the mail, but if you misplace it, that would probably be the quickest way you can get that information.
Yep, I was going to say call the VA would be the fastest. And on top of logging in and finding your claim tracker or a claim letter, whatever it is they call it, you can use it through the app, or you can just file a claim online. And then the first page will tell you what your intent to file date is.
Okay.
Right then and there, right? And if you don't have one, then that becomes your intent to file date.
Do you know if, because I know it used to be if you don't complete that application, that would be intent to file date. Do they follow up with an email? I haven't heard anybody to say that. If you start a claim online and you don't finish, do they follow, give an email confirmation and say, hey, we noticed that you started a claim and you didn't complete it? I haven't asked that to anybody.
Two. So the VA does it twice. It's another thing the VA gets, right? They will email you, hey, you started intent to file. It was that date. You haven't finished it yet. And then when it gets to month 11-ish, it'll say, hey, your intent to file is about to expire. I know that because I was doing a video on just how to submit a claim online. And then I made myself an intent to file. And then about a year after that,
I got
the notification. I was like, hey, this is actually good, VA. Let's keep this up, right?
Yeah, okay. And that email is what? Evidence.
There we go.
Evidence. So if they get the effective date wrong and you have to do a high-level review, or in that case, you could do a CUE as well. That would constitute a CUE. But either way, you got that evidence.
Yep, for sure. Okay, red leg. Funny name there. Okay,
No, that's field
definitely an
artillery.
army
That's
thing.
field artillery. Yeah, that's field
Yeah,
artillery.
yeah.
Yeah.
My brother James Guffey had a question. All right, James, send it. What can he do if the Army's Department of Health told him some of his medical records are blacklisted? That's a little weird. I know you were in the Army, so you
Yeah.
can. I'd like you to take that, and then I'll kind of give my 2 cents.
The M21-1 is clear. Like you have sensitive 6, which are VHA employees. Sensitive 7 is VBA employees, and then you have sensitive 8, I believe, or 10. So like the president, Congress people, only certain people are allowed. That I think there's sensitive 8 or maybe 10 or something like that. But the M21 talks about special ops because there's a lot of stuff that's redacted. And I would say go to the M21-1, just type in special operations, and it'll start your research there on information that could be redacted or fall under this. Okay. Because that constantly changes. And that's where I always tell people to go, because once you find that reference, there could be another M21-1 reference, that could be a 38 CFR, and or there could be a court case that talks about that. And you can start that your research there.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. I won't go too hardcore into it, but I was definitely supported some soft stuff as a PSYOPer, and I had to actually use multiple evidence. So in the Marine Corps, I got an award, and the award was redacted, and it just said the operation name. That's it. But even evidence like that, saying, "Hey, here's an award. I was there during this operation." Obviously, you can't see that, right? And so I would look at all evidence that puts you in that position, and depending on what we're talking about here, really.
Right. And that falls under credibility in the M21-1 reference. So if you say you hurt your back and there's no documented treatment, but you say you hurt your back during a certain exercise that you have an award for, they can use that to get you to the CMP exam.
Yep. Evidence other than medical.
Right.
There you
and
go.
Along with all this other evidence we've been talking about.
Yeah.
So intent to file, you go get treatment every month, boom, submit it. Now you got that track record. And again, if they deny it, there's more power for you on the high level review.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Nemo, okay, says in 2017, I filed a claim for sciatica, which was denied because no in-service diagnosis was found. I recently found the diagnosis of my service records. If I file again, will be backdated to 2017. So you're talking
this earlier.
Yeah, you would need a queue for that, which this one seems pretty clear, and I would be very surprised if there was a diagnosis in your service records and they just completely missed it. I would be surprised, and if that's the case, that's an easy queue. I'm willing to bet that's not the case, to be honest with you. And food for thought, generally speaking, sciatic nerve damage is going to be secondary to lumbar conditions. I've rarely seen it direct outside of like BDD claims, right?
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add to
Nope,
this one?
spot on. I was going to say the same thing. The only thing, some doctors, they'll say it's secondary to lumbar strain over degenerative disc disease of the back. And then I've seen it both ways. So I think it just really depends on the doctor. But if you get down into the weeds, I would Google it. And there's medical studies out there that proves it either way.
Yep, for sure. All right, we have a big one here. Thank you very much. We definitely appreciate that. Love what you two guys bring to veterans. I'm 100% P&T, and I've used you guys to help my siblings and other veterans. That's what it is about. Every time I see someone that's P&T, I'm like, hey, pay it forward, you know?
Yeah.
Don't charge that person. Maybe share our YouTube channels or just say, hey, here's what I did. Here's what it helped. Here's how it worked for me. We'd definitely love to see that for sure. So congrats. Okay, Daniel Chaco says, just wanted to thank you both for the amount of information y'all been putting out there. Awesome. Thank you pretty much. We definitely appreciate that. Clay told me about your YouTube channel after a class you led at Schofield last year. Oh, nice. Hey, that's sick. Okay, so I'll give some backstory. I have no idea who this person is. I have no idea who this is.
Are
I'm
they
a
talking
federal
about
employee
Schofield Barracks in
Hawaii.
Korea? Oh,
No,
Schofield.
and
Oh,
it's in
Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a Schofield. Yeah, Schofield's Hawaii. Oh my goodness, what a rookie! What a rookie move. Give me 30 seconds.
All right. So I'll just go on with this, Clay. But yeah, Daniel. First, congrats on that 100% PNT. I think that's awesome. And for all the other veterans that were able to just, like I said, just look at these the YouTube channels, my book, or just follow YouTube channels, build out your game plan and understand how the process works. That's going to be key for you to get to this 100%. And also, don't give up. I get vets telling me, hey, I'm just going to give up. And I'm like, what branch of service did you serve in? I was like, oh, I was in the Navy or Marines. I'm like, so they actually give classes on giving up. So you go through all of that and you're going to let the VA make you give up. So yeah, congratulations, Daniel.
Yeah. So some backstory. I'm a federal employee and I'm a curriculum developer and instructor. And so I travel to different units to teach whatever it is I'm teaching.
Mhm.
I went to Schofield Barracks. I go everywhere. Okay. And so apparently this person knows me. And apparently I told them about YouTube. So, hey, it worked. Look at that
Yeah,
face-to-face
there it is.
interaction.
There it is.
It actually works. So that's cool to know that like my real job as a federal employee got you to submit your VA claim. So that's cool, dude, for sure.
Awesome.
All right. Mars says, I have a proposed rating of 90% and I'm currently going through IDES. I disagree with the results. Should I go see a VSO now or wait till I'm out? Go ahead and start with this one because IDES is a little, it's different.
I would have to look in the M21-1. If you got a proposed rating and let's say you're under 90 days, but I will have to confirm this in the M21-1, you can still file another claim.
Mm-hmm.
Increase, secondary. I would find that, I would confirm that first. Second, I would still be going to sick call. If you're under that 90 days, I will still be going to sick call. Here's why. At midnight, on the date of that ETS, I will be filing a 526EZ for additional treatment or something. Okay, you're still on active duty because once you come off active duty, all bets off. That's it. You know, you still can possibly fall in that 1 year presumptive, but you're still on sick. I mean, you're still on active duty. You can still go to sick call and get stuff documented. So if you're under that 90 days, or you got a week or two left, still get stuff documented. That way, when you're out, you can go back and you can file those claims.
Yeah. I have two things to add to this. One, you said you disagree with that decision. So I'm assuming you're referring to you think you were going to get a higher rating for various disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the assumption, right? And so if that's the case, exactly what Dwayne just said, go to sick call. So let's say you're at 30% for mental health. You think you should be at 50. Okay, well, what are those symptoms at 50? Get those documented. Saying you have it is a lot different than saying, well, here's medical documentation that says I have it. Okay, you want medical documentation. So anything you believe you were lowballed, just get evidence for it. You're still in service. That's what I would do. Second line of thought. Think of your body head to toe. Did you claim everything you possibly could have claimed?
Mm-hmm.
It's best to do that now. Every day you wait, it's not going to be in your favor, right? So just that would be my advice: is increases, and then obviously new claims.
And you still got that final physical.
Yep, absolutely.
You document as much on there as possible.
All right, Jorge Gayton, sorry, dude, says, thanks for the help you guys provide to all the vets out there struggling and dispelling the stigma around mental health and asking for help. Thank you. Hey, thank you. We definitely appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, D9, the science guy. I don't know, something like that. Thank you, dude. We appreciate that. All right, Benny G says, you're good. Go Navy. Great content.
Hey, what's going on, Benny? You still over there in Germany or Hawaii? Yeah, I know who that is.
Awesome. All right. Jeff says, if your children are awarded Chapter 35 benefits, do you have to stop the dependent allowance on the VBA? It does happen. Let's go Dodgers, 100% PNC, and forever debt to Dwayne. Awesome. Congrats
Yep.
to you.
Yep. Okay. I know, Jeff. Yeah.
Yeah. But the answer is yes, and also go Nationals, right? Do you want to add to the 35 independent pay?
Yeah. Sometimes things fall through the cracks. If your kids are taking advantage of Chapter 35 and you're still getting back pay, call 800-827-1000, tell them to stop the dependent pay, send in a VA form, put it on a VA form 21-4138. I'd rather you have a small debt opposed to 10 years from now and they like, hey, you owe us $10,000. Okay. You cannot double dip. It's not worth it. Just even it may take them 6 or 7 months and you still owe that money, but you know it. So you can prepare for it. You don't want it to come out of left field and you have a debt, because what they're going to do, if you owe 10 grand and you're 100%, you're getting paid up to $4,000 or whatever, 37, they're going to withhold that until they get it back. And then you're going to have to go through and talk about a hardship and so that's what I'm saying. Just let them know up front.
Yep. The VA makes a mistake, it will fall on you to recoup that debt. That's not even a question. Okay.
I've seen it. Yeah.
All right. Griff says, for BDD claims, I love BDD claims. They're stupid easy. Are they being processed much smoother? I wouldn't say that about BDD claims at all. I've been watching all your videos. Mr. Kimball, thank you for your service. 11 Bravo, Staff Star. Yeah. Go ahead. Take that away.
I remember rating a bunch of BDD claims. One thing to keep in mind about BDD claims, or even if you're still on active duty, go to sick call. Don't suck it up. Get it documented. Even if you go to a private doctor, you're home on leave, you go to urgent care, you can still use that as long as it falls within the dates on that DD 214. Separation exam. Don't forget your SHA self health assessment form. Put all that information on there. Okay. I remember when BDD, I was doing proposal, like the other gentleman said, proposed ratings before veterans were coming off active duty. But now a lot of veterans know about this and there's a backlog. And so a lot of claims are not getting done until after the veteran is discharged. So that's why it's important at midnight on that 180th day, you should already have your 526 filled out.
Yep.
Your self SHA form completed. You should have your STRs on a thumb drive as PDF files. Go to Quick Submit, upload that claim. There should be no reason why you're waiting till the 179th day or the 90th day. If you do it on the 90th day, good luck with getting it before you leave active duty. You probably have like a 1% chance.
Yeah. I love how you brought that up. You should not be thinking about BDDs at 6 months out, which is 180 days. You should be thinking about BDDs 1 year out. Then you have 6 months to plan, do whatever you need to do, go to sick call, and then on that 180th day, like clockwork.
I had a Navy veteran. He became a client. We did a private Q&A with him. And he had like a year on active duty. I'm like, he was asking about BDD claims. But then when he got out, he had emailed me. He said, hey, we talked a couple of years ago, and he had 100% before he left active duty. So he was like, I got 3 years before it's time for me to ETS. I was like, okay. I was like, that's kind of weird. But
it's a little weird, yeah.
He was like, when we had the conversation, and I told him the same thing, told this gentleman, get it documented on the 180th day. And that's exactly what he did. And it worked.
Yep. Evidence is king when it comes to feasibility claims. All right. Eric Hinkle, thank you very much. Says, do I need an intent to file on secondaries while waiting for a copy of my CMP exam, or do they go back to the date of primary for back pay? No, not at all. I think you're kind of mushing supplemental claims and secondaries together when they're completely separate. That's probably what's happening. A secondary is just the basis of service connection. That's all secondary means. It just changes the basis for service connection. It's still a claim. You need an intent to file. It's going to go to that date.
Yep.
Yeah. So most likely that's what's happening. Okay. M. Garcia, thank you very much. We appreciate that. It says, when submitting a claim with the DBQ and Nexus, do we have to also submit doctor's notes, or is the DBQ and Nexus enough? I also live in Arizona, where I get denied for mental health using a DBQ and Nexus from a provider in a different state. I know you love talking about this subject, so take this one first. I definitely have some 2 cents to add, though.
Yeah. Yeah, DBQ and Nexus, I would have additional evidence with that DBQ and Nexus statement, because it'll show a track record of treatment from that particular doctor. Okay. So like we said earlier, intent to file. And another question I would have for veterans out there, how many times do you think you should see that doctor before they complete a DBQ for you? Okay. You live in Arizona, get denied for mental health. Will I get denied? That's going to depend on the rater. If it landed on my desk and it was actionable and sufficient, I'm granted. As long as it falls within the VA guidelines and criteria, is on the up and up. Yeah. So I'm going to just say it's going to depend on the rater who looks at it, because some raters I work with, they don't believe in private DBQs.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it goes back to what I stated earlier. Some VA employees are not advocates. So for that question, the answer to that question is going to depend on who looks at it.
Absolutely, yeah. And of note, the mental health DBQs has a box for telehealth. So generally speaking, you're going to be okay. But I am glad you brought that up. And you had said something earlier. I totally forgot to ping you a question on it. You had said if you submitted a private DBQ or Nexus that you would not attend a CMP exam. I'm of the opinion that I agree. However, many people would disagree, right?
Yeah.
To deny the CMP exam. It comes down to this, and I'm not saying, M. Garcia, you should do that. It's just something to think about, right? If I was going to not go to a CMP exam, I need to be 100% sure that DBQ and Nexus is actionable and sufficient. So if they didn't look at my service treatment records, I'm probably going to go to the CMP exam, right? Assuming your DBQ and Nexus is pretty solid, which based on what you said here, it probably is. That's something to consider, right?
And do you know the 38 CFR that states when a CMP exam should not be requested when there's sufficient evidence to rate the case? That's the argument that you can make on the high-level review if you decide not to go.
Yep, and you can even submit a 4138 and reference that and say, hey, y'all schedule a CMP exam and I'm not going. That would be appropriate as well. But you got to be for sure that your evidence is in line. That might be a time to speak to someone who does know what actionable and sufficient looks like, right?
Yep.
All right. Bobby D says, called VA hotline and they couldn't expedite my FOIA for my C file. Any further advice? Yeah. Dwayne just talked about a video that you did on a fast C file. Do you want to give any guidance here for that?
Yeah. So I had submitted a FOIA request for my CD. You could barely see my C file. I got a paper right back there, and I wanted it on CD. So I knew calling the 800 number was going to be a waste of time because they're just there, to take notes and put them in your.
They don't know anything.
Right. So I called the VA White House hotline, and I said, "Hey, I want to file a complaint." The gentleman started talking about the way this process works. I said, "Sir, I'm a retired rater. You're totally wrong. I just need for you to take this complaint, send it to the St. Paul regional office. I'm 6 to 7. That's where all my, all the claims for the St. Petersburg VA employees are at. And in my complaint, I need a callback from a supervisor." And so he asked me, "Well, what's your email?" I said, well, I'm Jehovah's Witness. I don't believe in emails, which I'm not a Jehovah's Witness. I just said that. So he just stopped asking me questions and trying to tell me, you know, the way the process works. A couple of days later, I get a call back from a supervisor, super nice. And I told him, since the 7th, I said, hey, I submitted my FOIA request back in January. Now it's like November 23rd. I said, and I would like my CD to be expedited. She said, well, we have 10 days to get it to you. And I said, ma'am, I said, I'm glad you said that. I said, I'm from Southeast Missouri, small country town. I said, but let me know if my arithmetic is right. You closed, and that's back when they had e-benefits. You closed the request out on November 3rd. The day is November 23rd. It's more than 10 days, correct? She said, you are correct. I said, now I got 30 days left if I want to do an appeal, which same as a high-level review. I said, I need full transparency. I said, unless you extend my appeal period, which I know they couldn't do. She said, Mr. Kimball, you're absolutely right. I'm so sorry. I'm going to get your CD in the mail. It's not going to have a little sticker on there. Are you okay with me just taking the Sharpie and putting your name on it? Perfectly fine with that. Week and a half later, UPS was at my door. Boom. So I tell people, and they don't watch the entire video. They say they call the VA White House hotline and they ask them for a supervisor. I'm like, no, that's not what I said in the video. That's why they're telling you this. So that's what helped. But you have to make sure that FOIA request is of record. And you can do that by calling the 800 number. Hey, can you look in VBMS and confirm that my FOIA request is there? If it's there, then you go to step 2 and call the VA White House hotline.
All right, there you go. And you have a video of that somewhere on your channel, I suppose.
Got 2. Yep.
There you go. All right. So we have Loco. StreamYard doesn't do emojis. I'm sorry, but I'm sure that emoji is hilarious. We definitely appreciate that, right? It's probably the cheers, you know. I'm just going to assume it is.
Yeah.
All right. Joe Hearn says, I'm filing for increases with personal statements, of course, but do I need personal statement for all my service-connected conditions that are static so they don't get decreased? So a few things here. Let's just hypothetically assume your other conditions would be decreased, which they're not. Your statement is not going to prevent that or prompt that at all. That's completely irrelevant. I would just erase half of your question here. So let's focus on the first thing. Increases, personal statements, solid. I'm still a fan of, KMD, this is not something you'll really find on the VA, but this, what I like to say is a fully developed increase, which just means, do you need evidence to submit that increase? Technically, no. You can submit it, go to your CMP exam, and be increased. However, I'm a huge fan of talking about my symptoms to my primary care and using that as evidence, and that's what I call the fully developed increase, right? That's like your slam dunk increase. So personal statement, good. Medical evidence, better. The second half of that, I would not. Your conditions are static, you're fine. Don't worry about it.
I get that a lot. So I'm curious, my question to veterans out there, where are you all getting this from that if you file a claim, the VA rater is going to go back and look at everything and you're going to possibly get decreased? Where is that coming from? It's coming from somewhere. I like to know where it's coming from.
It's funny you say that. I just made a video about how my static mental health conditions was reevaluated and I explained why. I'm going to do this as fast as I can, but the whole video goes into it. I had evidence that indicated the improvement, right? And so me prompting the VA with another claim and having that evidence, that's what sparked the reevaluation, which is fine because I also had other evidence that maintained that rating. But 99% of the time, if your conditions are static and our bodies do not heal, okay, you're going to be fine.
Yeah. But even, if let's say, for instance, your service connect for PTSD is 70%. And you come in for tinnitus. As a rater, even if you show improvement in VA progress notes, I'm not even looking at that. I'm even if you're claiming something secondary, I'm not looking at that. Only time I'm looking at that if it's an increase or actual, to get reduced, you have to already be service connected. I'm looking at it. If I'm looking at a need, something, You just don't have the time. And there's
Yeah.
nothing in the regulation that requires the VA employee to do it unless they see something like, obviously, like fraud or something like, fraud or something like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. So that's a long way around the barn to say, hey, everyone out there, you're fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Seriously. Okay. River Parish Rattlers. Thank you again. This is the second time we've seen you on here. We
Yeah.
definitely appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Been set up for phone call ACE exam for deferred migraine secondary to sinusitis. Okay. Think this is to assist with my rating or reason to deny. Otherwise, what's the point of calling me? Yeah, that's a loaded question there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I will say this. I don't really like ACE exams at all, but generally speaking, what that means is it only requires the opinion, nothing else, generally speaking. Since they called you, I would actually take that as a good sign, because that at least tells me the examiner has a question and they want to confirm something with you at a baseline indicator. I think that's a good sign. Does it have anything to do with service connection or not? It does not. Right? Those two things are not correlated at all. Do you want to say anything about ACEs?
Yeah. I hate them.
Yeah.
I know hate is a strong word, because if you don't get any treatment at the VA, how does that doctor know your migraines interfere with your employment? Now, in the book, I talk about example wording. I would think that you would have that in there, right?
Yeah.
But at a minimum, they should call you and ask you that question. But more so to you, River Parish Rattlers, can you reasonably articulate your symptomology as to how your service-connected sinusitis has caused your migraines? Do you know the criteria for the 0, 10, 30, 50% for migraines? Do you know the definition of economic inadaptability? Do you know the definition of prostrating? Do you know the definition of completely prostrating? Do you know some of the examples that you can present as evidence for each one of those criteria?
Yeah. And the good news about sinusitis is headaches, migraines is a part of that 50% criteria for other symptoms outside of surgery, however the criteria is worded. So the secondary connection exists somewhere. So you have that going for you, but everything KMD just said for sure. All right. Patrick says, good evening, gents. Previously denied claim. I have documents with my private doctor for an injury occurred during my reserve time, but no documentations in my STR. Is it possible to get service connected? Doctor agrees it was caused by service. What do you? So I think reserves and guard get shafted more than any other, more than active duty. Okay,
Tough
it's not
claims to
even.
rate.
Yeah.
Tough claims to rate. LOD, line of duty. If you don't have, because you have active duty, you have active duty for training, and then you have inactive duty for training. Inactive duty for training is the 2 days a month. Active duty for training is the 2 weeks, or some specialty school. If you go over 2 weeks and you don't get a DOD DD 214. Now, there's about 4 or 5 conditions in the M21-1. I haven't talked about it on any of my YouTube videos. I haven't seen anybody else talk about it, but they're cardiovascular. And you can get service connected for those during inactive duty for training to include a reasonable amount of time traveling to and from drill. And people don't even know it. Other than that, if you're still in the guard or reserve and you get injured during that 2 weeks, make sure your command does an LOD. It's still not a guarantee, but that's going to get you to second base, which is that CMP exam.
Yeah. And based on what you have here, you have an argument, right? Your private doctor, which is probably your treating physician, which is really good, by the way. It's much better than a one-time visit, right? I would ask your private doctor to write a nexus, right? They already agree it's caused by service. Absolutely try to get them to complete a DBQ and a nexus, especially for reserves, which it seems like it's going to be easy for you because they are your treating physician. Right. And when it's your primary, they're more prone, especially in the private world, they're more prone to support you with that, right? Versus a one-time visit, they might be hesitant.
Right. And in that rationale, they need to not only state subjective. So when you say doctor agrees it was caused by service, is that based off your subjective statement or your subjective statement and objective evidence
Yeah.
reviewed that we talked about earlier? Okay. If they put that in there, that's a strong nexus. But if they don't, and they just go off of what you tell them, because then is it active duty for training, and active duty for training? So just make sure you understand that.
Absolutely. All right. And we have Mick Fielster. I love that name. It's so hilarious. The name when I do streams, one of my favorite things is just to look at everyone's
Look at the names.
Okay. Reservist deployed in a combat zone. Another reserve question. Okay. Been to medical for injuries, running multiple incoming attacks. Is that enough for PTSD? Yeah. Absolutely. If I'm going to assume your life was in danger there, that seems like a pretty solid stressor. I'm also going to assume you never submitted that claim, because if you did, it would probably be an easy claim. Based on this comment right here, I'm making some assumptions, right? No behavioral health on compound to document anything. You have the PTSD is a different story. There's a different process with that. According to the -1, I'm sure you can speak better on that. But it seems, based on this comment alone, you have the stressors. You probably have multiple stressors. I would get a current diagnosis and submit the claim, and I wouldn't even worry about it.
But the big question is, can you reasonably articulate your symptomology, PTSD being a combat, as it pertains to social and occupational impairment?
Yeah.
That's it. Because I've seen veterans go in there and say, oh, I got divorced. Oh, it's not due to your 20 deployments between Iraq, Kuwait, and Afghanistan. It's due to that divorce. Not saying not to go in there and say you weren't divorced, but it goes back to when you were there, and again, how you're claiming. If you're saying, like you said, Clay, if you were in fear for your life. So if you base it on fear, hey, I was QRF for, Navy SEALs, special ops, and, they would, QRF, quick reactionary force, you had to go pick them up, whatever, it was a hot LZ. You got to be able to explain that. And then how has it affected you since service on your job and in your personal life?
Absolutely. I'll give an example of that for PTSD specifically. If you're having reoccurring thoughts and nightmares, that would be a solid symptom linking straight to PTSD versus like your dad beat you or you're divorced or, fill in the blank with everything that happens in life. Okay. All right. Jazzu06. Okay. I've been, see, it's hilarious. I've been service connected for 8 years. I've had a re-exam I've never had a re-exam in that time. Should I expect a re-exam at some point?
I would say 8 years, you're probably good to go. But also, again, this would let me know that the veteran is not educated on routine future exams. Because in the rating decision, and I did a video on this, in any narrative for any condition, it'll say, since there's a likelihood of improvement, that means that condition is not static. So you have to read these rating decisions, and people don't know the difference between a rating decision and a notification letter. And I give an example of the first page of each one of those, because those two documents come in the same packet. One is completed by the VSR. The other one is completed by the RVSR. You have to take the time to read these rating decisions. I'm telling you, because I'm just waiting on, I was waiting on one to say, hey, VA set up a date with you, with Beyonce and J-Lo, and they put it in the rating decision. I'm not going to miss that, So you have to read these rating decisions. And if you don't understand them, reach out to Clay, reach out to me, somebody that knows how to read them to explain the verbiage that's in them. Trust me, you will not go wrong.
Yeah, I love you how you said that, because the VA tells you have a routine future exam. They're not hiding that information from you. So every time someone asks, I'm like, well, did you read your decision letter? The answer is no, obviously. And the answer is there, right? But that goes back to the 2 to 5 year rule. That will be your exam date. Probably it can be less than 2 years sometimes. But then you have your 10-year rule with service connection, then your 20-year rule with the rating. So,
but you know how to speed that 2 5 years up, right? You can speed
How's
it
that?
up. File for increase the next day.
Yeah.
You get that, and that will satisfy that RFP. You don't have to wait that 2 or 5 years. I did RVSR hearings, and they be like, "Well, how do you want to do it right now, Phil? Let's do it right now."
Mhm.
Can I do it? Yeah. So you don't have to wait. Even cancer, I wouldn't put 12 months. I would put 6 months. Just because sometimes the veteran is terminal. So I want to go ahead and give them
Yeah,
that
yeah.
chapter 35 and let them, live the rest of their life out.
Absolutely. All right. Tactic 9 says, I'm 100% PNT. Congrats. But I used one of the vultures. Didn't know any better. My claim is legit. But with all the hoopla going on, do I need to worry since I use one of the vulture claim companies? I don't think so. And you would, I'm going to say it like this. And I assume that stems off of our previous conversation.
Mhm.
If you know you are service connected for something that you know you don't have, that's not something you're going to be like, oh, what?
Yeah.
Like you're going to know that. Now, based on what you said, that it's legit, you have nothing to worry about, right? Thinking about claims companies, especially the predatory ones, I really don't like them. But the objective fact is, do they help veterans get service connected? The answer is yes. It's
Mhm.
subjectively yes. And so not all claims companies are committing fraud. The likelihood to do that when they're incentivized with the highest rating increases. That's what I'm trying to say. Do you have anything to add to that? It's
Yeah.
definitely a deep subject.
Yeah, I got a question for you, Clay, because you said predatory before, and I've seen, I've had, like I said earlier, people call me claim SARC. Predatory. What are some of the? Can you give an example? Because I hear it, but I'm like I don't keep up with it just because I'm like
Yeah.
I got to be in the M21-1 and other stuff.
Oh, dude, you're speaking
Can,
my language now. You're
can
good.
can you give some examples? Educate me on what are some of the things that you consider predatory?
Yeah, so it's super subjective, right? So what I would consider a predatory claim shark, someone who's charging crazy fees like 12 grand, 15 grand,
Mm-hmm.
that's a hard no. Hard no every single day. I don't care what's going on, 12 grand, 15 grand. I seen a charge of 22 grand. That was just
Wow.
insane. Okay. Insane. That's one example. The other example, and it's not just claim companies, it's also attorneys. So when the pack that came out,
Yeah.
and it was effective, January 23, I think was the effective date. It was passed in August of 22.
Yeah.
There were attorneys that were charging 33.3% for appeals on sinusitis and rhinitis. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, that's a little predatory because there's no work that needs to be done because it's presumptive. You're literally just submitting the supplemental, right? And so so attorneys can be predatory. And then obviously charging 15 grand for a veteran coming off of a BDD claim, that's a no-go for me as well. And I
Yeah.
see that happen all the time. And the reason I'll speak on BDD claims is because BDDs are stupid easy. And I mean that. For service connection, BDD claims are stupid easy. For a company to charge a veteran 15 grand to go from 0 to 100, especially in the post 9/11 era we're in, I just can't. I cannot get on board with that, right?
Right.
Are all claims companies bad? Absolutely not. There's some good ones. I'm actually trying to work with one right now that I think is
Yeah.
good. We'll
Yeah.
try to navigate that. But I tell you this, if they charge 12, 15 grand, I will rip up that contract and take them to court in a heartbeat. So
Man, just think if you had like, I don't know, let's just say 15 clients. You charge each one 15 grand. Man, that falls on the big business
yeah.
right there. It was something that I was going to say about shoot, what was it? I've seen as a rater, I've seen lawyers write in and say they forego their fee agreement. They waive their fee. So we already know they're going above and beyond that 20% for the veteran. So if you're a veteran and you're working, let's say with a law firm, again, if they say, oh, we'll forego our fee and sign our service agreement outside of the VA, and you really want them to represent you, you don't have to do it if you don't want to, because they could either take that 20% or leave it, But again, at the end of the day, it's up to you. But you have to ask those questions, and you have to also read whatever you're signing. Okay. So
Yeah.
if it's not the 21-22 or 21-22 alpha, even if you're signing one of those, you can give them limited representation as well. Okay. They don't have to have full representation. Make sure any VA form that you're completing, 9 times out of 10 is going to be an instruction section for that form. Make sure you read it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I hope did that educate you on at least my subjective definition
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
predatory?
Because people were calling me that. And I'm like, shit, man, am I undercharging? I ain't never,
Yeah.
I would be nervous. I would
You're
be kind of
probably
scared.
undercharging if I had to take
Yeah,
a wild
I,
guess. Yeah.
I would, be, I guess me morally, I am a for-profit business owner. I get it. But at some point you got to think, is it right? 15, cause man, I'm thinking, man, the X amount of clients, if I'd have done 18, 20,000, man, that'd have been, man, that'd probably be, just think about this. I'm just throwing this number in my head. Companies are doing that, and they do it like, say, 2 years. Man, they're over $1 million.
Yeah.
Gotta be.
They're easy. Easy.
Man, whew. Yeah.
So people
Read,
talk a
read
lot
that
of
fine
trash.
print.
Yeah, people talk a lot of trash on me when I talk about claims companies, which I have thick skin. I'm fine.
Mhm.
And something I'm glad you brought that out, the number thing. If myself and KMD, we could make a company right now and do 5 times the increase, and we will get you the increase, and we'll be rich off of the veterans back. But we're not going to do that. There's a level of integrity there, right? And so, before you talk trash on claims companies are good, I'm not saying they're all bad. But
Find
think
out
about
what they
that
do.
for a
Yeah.
second. Yeah.
Find out what they do. And I do a weekly educational webinar, and I did that because I want people to understand what I do, but most importantly, what I don't do.
Yeah.
And I've told people, they're like, oh, I want to do a Q&A, which I'm like, you know what? Your question, I got a video out there. Search this video on my channel. And if you got questions after that, then set it up. Go watch the free video first. And people are like, man, you're committing business suicide. Look, that's easy. Well, I'm trying to get tinnitus. I got several videos out there. I'm pretty sure other people got it. Just listen to them and it should click. And then you don't have to come spend that time and money with me because you watch these free videos. If I got a free video out there, or I just may say, talk about acoustic trauma for like 60 seconds. How will you expose? That's the argument on CMP exam right there. And they'll say, that's too easy. That's the process.
Yeah, that's
You
it.
have to, you got to explain it. I can't explain it for you. I can tell you how I explain it, how I rated it, how I saw veterans say this or that. You get that down pat, and if they deny it, you can always go back in for an increase. Need new and relevant evidence, rinse and repeat. Just keep doing it over and over. But if you do it over and over 3 or 4 times, you're missing something along the way. More than likely.
Absolutely. Yeah. At some point, you're going to need to reach out and get help, right?
Yeah.
All right. So we have Timberland Woodworking, who looks at and rates a claim after a higher level review and supplemental claim. So we're talking 2 different claims here to provide Nexus letter. That part's throwing me off there a little bit. The HLR rater or regular rater. Also, thank you both. Do you want to take that?
Yeah.
I assume he means the opinion from the CMP examiner, but
yeah. So if there's no DT, if there's a DT error, obviously the DRO is kicking it back, and more likely the raters is going. You should get a rating decision from the HLR. I got an upcoming video on this, letting you know there's a DT error, and then if it goes back to the VSR for further development or whatever, the rater is going to eventually rate the claim. Okay. And supplemental claim to provide a Nexus letter. So if you provide a Nexus letter that's doing relevant evidence as a supplemental claim, that is going to be the rater. I've heard, but I cannot confirm this, some raters are doing HLRs. I don't know how true that is. It shouldn't be, because the M21-5 explains who does those. Okay, so I just think it was just some rumors. But this question is kind of off a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's the way I explained that answer, Timberland. So hopefully I didn't confuse you any. I think we missed a couple there, Clay. Bobby Diaz and Hawk.
Yep. Nope. You're right. I see it right now. Okay. Thank you for that. Bobby D's, hilarious name, says that's what I did. I followed your video. Oh, I think this is about the C file.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So did you get it?
Yeah.
He left us hanging.
All right. And then we have Hawk says part 1 of 3, dental class 2. Okay. So just food for thought, Hawk. I cannot go search your second and third one because the amount of chats we have, I just can't.
How many people we got in here?
Right now, we're still at 558. Man. So we've been maintaining.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's impossible for me to search your question. So, but we will answer this, and we can make some assumptions along the way. Something I've noticed is claims are almost all the same when it comes to giving advice, right? Because there's a lot we don't know.
Right.
So denied class, dental class 2, service connected, non-compensable, 0%, service trauma, knockout your tooth, and 89, solid evidence statement of medical 6 lips treatment SCRs. I assume it's going to be an increase for the trauma to the tooth. And then I probably assume there's like a secondary because trauma's involved, possible TBI, maybe migraines might be a part of that. So there's probably some secondary questions that are along with this tooth. Dental conditions, I'll tell you, I do not have that much experience with. Can you speak as a rater when it comes to non-compensable ratings for dental conditions specifically?
Yeah, didn't like them. Didn't like them because it always had to involve some type of trauma, the mandrel, TMJ. But if it was like they call it vicarious teeth or something like that. So if you had your wisdom teeth pulled, no. You got 0%. So everything that you listed there, medical examination, duty status, 6 slip, treatment, SCR, that probably got you to the 0%. So the question is, do you know the diagnostic code for your dental condition?
Yeah.
Is there evidence that was of record at the time of this, at the time this claim was adjudicated to warrant a 10%? If the answer is no, there's no high level review. If there's an increase, do you meet the criteria? Not here on paper, evidence. There should be a simple increase. If not, then the 0% would be in order. And that's for any condition.
Yeah,
any condition. And 0% is not a bad thing.
Yeah, knowing the diagnostic code is going to save you a lot of time. And 0%, not a bad thing. It still allows you those secondaries. Yeah. Which with dental, I see a lot of migraine-like secondaries. Because if you have a dental condition going on, your life sucks, to be honest with you. Like you're in pain for sure.
I've seen veterans, the primary at 100% off of secondary to secondary, and the primary condition is at 0.
Mm-hmm.
Go figure.
All right. Wayne Smith, thank you very much. We definitely appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
C. Settle says, unit lost, Gulf War medical records and time not listed on DD 214. Yeah, I hate these questions because there's really, I really have no answer for lost medical records and what that looks like.
I do.
Go ahead.
If it's reserve or National Guard, especially the National Guard is state, reserve is federal. So let's say it's National Guard. Contact your headquarters of that state archives department. Federal, contact DFAS. There should be some pay stubs that you can use to put you overseas. And if we can put you overseas, now you can claim all this stuff under presumptive. I've rated cases like that before. Okay, it may take a little bit of work. Intent to file, 800-827-1000, intent to file, then get to work.
I'm going to steal that answer from you, just so you know. Okay, that's solid. I never even thought about pay stubs from DFAS and federal and state. Solid.
Because your state it may be harder for National Guard because it's state. We know they don't keep records like DFAS does on the federal side. But again, that's where you have to tell people that's where you have to understand the process and then invest the time. Like we said, intent to file, you got 12 months. You gotta put in the work. And if you talk to a VSO or attorney, they don't know that, and you want to work with somebody that's accredited, then that's a red flag. You might want to go find somebody that understands that type of research that needs to be done.
Absolutely. All right. We have 88 super chats, just so you know.
Still,
I never had more than like 10 or 15.
yeah,
Okay.
I see 88 up here, but it's still 88 after this one.
No. 88
Oh,
total. No. We're not.
I was about to say, whoa.
We
I
can
was
bring-
like,
okay. No LOD. That off the bat, that's not good. It's not the end of the world, but it's definitely a downer. Okay.
Mhm.
Objective statement, objective medical evidence. That part is good. MEPS exam was golden. Year later, back is jacked up. Active and inactive duty training incidents. Within 1 year, it's unlikely that your back is going to deteriorate a lot within 1 year without having something on your MEPS exam, which means something happened, like an impact. You fell, so, something hit you, something happened. My question is, whatever that something was, can you get a buddy statement? Is there any event like a safety report? Units are required to do safety reports. So although you may not have an LOD, is there a safety report of something happening? Okay. That's just, I'm kind of implying here, but that's what's probably happening. Do you have anything to add, Dwayne?
Yeah, it says MEPS exam. So on the MEP exam, that would fall under pre-service aggravation because they're listing things before you came on active duty. LOD, obviously National Guard or Reserve. So trying to put this into perspective, back jacked up, active, inactive duty training incidents. No LOD. Was it air assault? Was it if
Yeah.
he was on jump status or something like that, and that's documented. Then buddy statements. It's going to be a stretch, but still it can be done. You're just going to have to do a little bit of work and a little bit more. Like we can obviously we can sit here and just guess and go back and forth, but that won't do you any good. You're going to have to figure out exactly. Look at some of our videos. I think I don't know if have you done one, Clay, on LODs, line of duties?
I have, just on the fact of get one, not necessarily out of which, if I'm saying that, it's probably already too late for the person who needs it, right?
And then look at the because then the MOS,
Yep.
but then if it's active, well, he says active and inactive. Okay, so what records do you have from active? Period. Is there anything from active that you can relate to that training? So active and inactive duty training incidents. So, yeah.
Yep. All right. Now we're at, that was Patrick R. Okay. Loco. Thank you very much. This is like your third time, I think, we've seen it with the emoji and the question. So, dude, seriously, you don't have to do that. No one has to do this. Okay. We actually have too much now, but we definitely appreciate it. Seriously, we are in debt to you.
Right. And I always let people know when I get super stickers, I create a nonprofit in my grandmother's name, and I give out scholarships every year to individuals in low income areas. And then we probably do something around Thanksgiving again. USF, University of South Florida. I went and bought a couple of turkeys, and I deep fried them for them for their Veteran Success office. So a lot of veterans that went to school there that couldn't go back home and enjoy a meal. Deep fried a couple of turkeys for them. So a lot of the donations, they paid for that.
Awesome. That is, I did not know that, Dwayne, but that's great.
Yep.
I'm all here for it. C Settle had the question about the Gulf War medical records just about like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. Okay.
Junior Camper, thank you very much. We appreciate that. Let's try and get through these last few ones here.
Yeah.
Was granted tinnitus with insomnia at 10%. Yep, because the new change to the -1 there in January. The examiner also filed anxiety was also caused by tinnitus in the DBQ. Should have gotten an MH rating, higher level review. That I would actually pose that question to you, Dwayne, when an examiner does a complete exam, if you will, and they identify other conditions. Is that something the veteran can use in an appeal, or is that just saying, hey, now I know I need to submit anxiety secondary to my tinnitus?
Well, you got the insomnia there. So
Yeah.
I would be looking at the code sheet to see if they have both diagnostic codes there. They have both diagnostic codes. Excuse me. It's just a simple increase in insomnia. So they break them out.
Mhm.
So the reason why they combine them is because if I was still rating, I would do the insomnia at 0% and the tinnitus at 10. Because it's going to help me reach my production quota faster. Because instead of rating one issue, now I'm rating two, right? So I would get the code sheet to determine that. If it's two diagnostic codes there, then obviously it's just an increase in insomnia. We don't even have to worry about the anxiety because that's going to be pyramiding.
Yeah. But regardless of what the situation is, you clearly have evidence of anxiety secondary. The VA's already conceded on insomnia. That's a really easy claim. Okay.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, secondaries are a bit difficult. In this case, it's easy, right? You already have the evidence. Clearly, you're going to be fine. So Nick R says, I got service connected for migraines after appealing the decision. Congrats to you. Appeals are not easy, okay? The decision letter states 30%, decreased to 10%. Final decision based on appeal CMP. Can I challenge that? Now that one threw me a loop there. You talk about you won service connection. You were 30%. I guess at some point it went from 30 to 10 based on appeal CMP. Oh, I think I know what he's saying. Okay. In his original migraine claim, the CMP examiner, it would have been rated at 30, but there was no service connection there. When he got service connection, the new CMP examiner put 10%. I'll say you that I'll tell you this from migraines. In my experience, I would love to hear your experience. Migraines, I would argue, is probably the number one service-connected condition where veterans have to higher level review to be properly rated, because the criteria is very vague for CMP examiners when they're completing the DBQ. So you'll often see higher level reviews from 10 to 30 or 10 to 50 for migraine specifically, because it's very ambiguous to the CMP examiner. And then you have the rater going one up, concede, or one below. They're going to concede because they're on that time quota, right? Yeah. Probably. So
example wording. If I am claiming an increase in my service connected migraines. Since my last CMP exam, my condition has deteriorated. I now meet with the following symptoms. 50% criteria verbatim. If the doctor doesn't check that box, holler review, because they should have used your subjective lay statement to grant the higher percentage.
Yeah. And on top of that, with migraines, I assume you're taking medication. Veterans who are taking medication, that is hard. That would be objective evidence of severity and frequency. If you're on like 15 milligram of sumatriptan, that's not that much. If you're on 100 milligram of sumatriptan, that indicates severity. You take 5 pills per month and your prescription's refilled, all of a sudden this objective evidence starts stacking up. So migraine increases are generally easier, assuming you have the evidence, right?
When I rated, Clay, I was one of those raters. I didn't care. If the doctor checked that box and you didn't say you took no medication, I'm giving you 50%. But now everything you just stated is true. Because
you got to have evidence. Yeah.
They just, it's not the same. It's, and again, the DTA errors.
Absolutely. All right. Mick Fielster. Again, thank you. This is your second time. We definitely appreciate that. As a reservist, how do I get diagnosed? At DMO, private doctor when I get home. It's definitely affecting my sleep, friendships, and mental big time. I'll tell you this. One, like I said, and I'll continue to say this, reservists and guard get shafted when it comes to VA compensation specifically because of the lack of evidence, right? picture perfect. When does a reservist or a guardsman get diagnosed? It's during that active time. That's number one, right? Number two would be after training, you go home for private. Is it still good? Yes, it's still good, but it's definitely not as strong as I got hurt. Here's a safety report. Here's an LOD. Here's my diagnosis while I was on active training, right? So there's going to be some give and take there. I'm assuming that ship has already sailed for you. If it hasn't, the bottom line is getting diagnosed. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, you were spot on with it.
All right. Perfect. Thank you. So Junior Camper says, I haven't seen that much information for PFB online. What is the best way to claim PFB if I've been out of active duty for 10 plus years? While I was in, I had a permanent shaved shit due to shaving bumps. That's pseudo barbe, right? Is that what he's talking about?
Folliculitis barbe.
Yeah.
So you see this a lot in African-American males. I'm service connected for it at 0%. So you could see like a discoloration there, right? I'm 0%. Yeah. But if I was to shave with something other than clippers, I'm bumping up really bad. I had a profile. I had an examiner try to tell me, oh, you're fine now. No, I'm not. I've used clippers. I use very expensive clippers to keep from bumping up, okay? Because the hair grows out and it goes back in the skin. You bump up really bad, right? Or you shave with a cheap razor and the blade is, some steel is just cheap and it irritates the skin. You got sensitive skin. It leaves like these little, like somebody took a little pair of what they call those things, those old shavers, a little razor, and cut your skin, little lines in it because the skin is irritated, right? So it's easy to get at the 0% if you have those shaving waivers. I've seen veterans get denied because they grew their beards out because they didn't want to shave. And they're like, there's no proof. The veteran shaves, goes back in, boom, 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 service connected. So if you go in there with a beard and you have a profile, depending on the examiner, you could come out service connected, more than likely at 0 because, they can't see anything. But I've also seen it to go other way and to get denied because they're like, we can't see the skin that is irritated and so forth. So again, I think with that is going to boil down to the examiner.
Absolutely, yeah. But bottom line, and I love how we've probably answered, I don't know, maybe 100 questions. They all go back to evidence, right? You have to have evidence, and that it only helps your case.
Yeah.
Okay, Taro Moran, thank you very much. Right, Hua to you for sure. All right, Hawk says, "Oh, dude, you did not have to do that. Now I feel bad. I feel so bad.
I know, right?
Okay, hold on. We're going to give you the.
He was the dental. He was the dental. Yeah, I remember him. He was the dental.
I also want to read this again just to kind of orient myself. So, dental class 2, non-compensable 0%, tooth knocked out. You had the evidence for service connection. Okay, let's go back to Hawk here. 2 out of 3. Repaired with appliance, 2 teeth, 8, 9, 10. Not enough missing teeth to warrant class 1 compensable. Re-injured 2 years ago. VA told me the 100% in homeless class lines, not the other 6 classes. M21 processing dental claims is confusing, but especially for eligibility office, dental chief, and admin off. Pat, anyone out there that can break down for 2A? I think it goes down to your diagnostic code.
Yeah.
Isn't it crazy how we made some assumptions and we still answered the question right?
Yeah. Do you want that? Do you want that? Excuse me. Do you want that increase? That's it. At the end of the day, it looks like he's getting treatment under VHA, but still at 0% under VBA, and that's where the diagnostic code criteria for. I don't want to get away from my book over there, but I still got my rating schedule. For when I was a Raider. Dave came to the house and I said, "You know what that is, don't you, Dave?" Dave was like, "Man, what is that? What is all that information?" But yeah, you got to go back and you could find it. You don't even have to go back to the rating schedule. You could look at that rating decision because As a rater, we have to tell, by law, we have to tell you why we granted you the 0% and why the next highest percentage was not warranted.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of veterans, they just see that, hey, I got $30,000 back pay, and then they all go into Sizzlers, and they don't read the rating decision, that spells out, hey, this is why you got this. And I've seen veterans don't read it, and we look at their paperwork, and we're like, hey, there's a CUE. They gave you incorrect effective date 10 years ago. And you were supposed to be 100% 8 years ago.
Yeah,
but you
that's
didn't
a
get it to
lot
8.
of back pay.
And I tell them, we all going to Sizzlers. After that,
bring us with you, okay? Bring us with you.
So read that rating decision.
Yeah, it goes back to exactly what we had said about the increase.
Yeah.
Your evidence for service connection is completely irrelevant at this point because you're service connected. Now it's your evidence for a compensable rating. You either had it then or you didn't. Hopefully you did, because that would be some serious back pay. If you didn't, that sucks. But now we need to get that evidence and submit the fully developed increase, right?
There it is.
Bobby D's, again, thank you very much. It's like your fifth time for this one. No, they said it was first come, first serve. I assume this was back on the C file discussion about the phone call there.
Yeah. Yeah. That, again, that's why it's important to speak, because again, first come, first serve. So basically, you put me at a disadvantage when I want to do that high level review. You only giving me 12 months, and now I got to wait 14 months, and then there's no high level review.
Yeah.
So no, it's not first come, first serve. It's hey, I need that like yesterday to build my case.
Absolutely.
Don't take no for an answer.
All right. Kevin S says AFib can be caused by sleep apnea according to peer-reviewed studies. I would be careful with looking at peer-reviewed studies, because I promise you there's also peer-reviewed studies that probably say the opposite. Way. So don't. It's not an end-all be-all, okay? If I have service connection AFib, can I claim I may have had undiagnosed sleep apnea using AFib secondary to sleep apnea studies I'm referring to? The undiagnosed part is going to be almost impossible, because we can't, as veterans, we can't do that, okay? Now, if you showed symptoms, you would want those documented. If you showed symptoms, now you have a better argument for secondary. I would probably prioritize your attention on getting sleep apnea secondary versus undiagnosed from years ago, right? I assume there's some back pay questions in here. I'm not sure, but I would focus on secondary connection first, unless you have anything to kind of pull from this.
Yeah, I don't think that when you get into undiagnosed, that's where you get kind of in the weeds, you get kind of sticky, because I may have been undiagnosed. Yeah, there's a lot more to unpack there. And I actually, Kevin, I know who he is. I always tease him about the Bruce Lee picture there. I always think about Enter the Dragon.
Yeah,
but he comes with a lot of good questions. But there's more questions that I have on this, Kevin.
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would still divert my attention to getting the secondary connection, because if you have sleep apnea undiagnosed, I would get it diagnosed. That's step one, right?
Yeah, you got
step one, get it diagnosed. Step two, okay, so now that you know sleep apnea and AFib, whatever, is connected, what is your evidence that connects them? I get the study says that they are connected, but what is your evidence that connects them?
Right.
Veterans always miss that piece. You can't just say sleep apnea is connected to AFib because they say it. Your symptoms must connect it. You could also be extremely obese, and sleep apnea stems from your obesity, right? And so just because you have AFib doesn't mean that your sleep apnea is connected to AFib. You got to have evidence indicating it so. Okay. Joe Hearn says, my old Air Force bud called me today drunk. His mom told me she's taking him to get help for alcohol abuse. Mental health is no joke, guys. Please reach out to your military buddies and check up on them. Absolutely.
Yep.
Totally agree. Yeah. I actually just did a video, I think it was today, I schedule my videos in advance because I have an extremely busy schedule. Now, it was today. I talked about what veterans don't really see when it comes to mental health, and it's crazy, dude. But check that out. Yes, mental health, especially for the post 9/11 GWAT era, is in the top 5, I think, for GWAT. Maybe top 6 there of claims for GWAT era. I'm saying GWAT meaning Gulf War.
Yep.
Era. Okay. M. Garcia, thank you both for the info. Seeing ortho specialist for my back. Only a few visits. They completed DBQ and Nexus. Been seeing Chiro for about 6 years. Can I use Chiro notes along with ortho, DBQ, Nexus? You should.
Yep.
Yeah, the answer is yes times 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One thing to add and share your thoughts if you'd like. When it comes to evidence for your claim, there is no I'm going to withhold this evidence from the VA because of whatever reason. No, if you have evidence that supports your claim, submit the evidence. Right? There's no reason. I'm going to assume this is private practice here because we're talking about submitting evidence. Absolutely, any evidence you have to support your claim, there's no reason to not submit it.
Yeah. And with that being said, you heard Clay say any evidence that supports your claim.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen this. I would never fill out, this is just me. Every veteran, do what you want. I would never complete a VA form 21-4142 medical release form. Here's why.
Yep, I agree.
If you go into that doctor getting treatment for, let's say, 5 different conditions that you're service connected for, and let's just say you're going for an increase in all those conditions, and you happen to go to the doctor, and what do they normally ask you? How you doing today? Oh, I'm doing good. Now that rater can see that. Mm-hmm. Oh, he's doing good. And you get one of those overzealous raters that maybe didn't get hugs, getting off the bus in kindergarten or something. You know, they may look at that and be like, oh, he's great. Now me, I really wasn't, unless it had to really jump out. Like, you know, I'm back in the military and I'm, 21 again, So I would not get that 4142. I would get that evidence myself and go through it. Like Clay said, that support your claim. Take out the stuff that supports it, and you could submit it as a FDC claim with your DBQ and your Nexus.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. I would never recommend someone. A 4142 gives the VA access to all of your private records from wherever you designate.
And then asked me, why is my claim taking so long? Because they established the EP. Oh, the veteran wants to go get medical records. Your claim is on hold for 30 days because they're going to send you that form. You got to sign it. You send it back. It doesn't mean they're going to look at it on that 31st day. It could be 60 days. Now we're at 3 months. Then they send it to the doctor. They put that EP on hold again for another 30 days. We're at 4 months. The doctor has 30 days. 30 days go by. Now we're at 5 months. It may be another 30 days for a look at. We're at 6 months. Then they send you a letter, put their claim on hold again for another 30 days. We're at 7 months. And guess what's in that? The doctor never responded. It is your ultimate responsibility to get that evidence. Intent to file, go get your evidence. Boom, simple as that.
Yeah, there's no reason I would. If you have private records, just submit it with your claim.
Yeah.
That support your claim, obviously. Okay. Blue 4 Delta. All right. My intent to file was August 23, filed July 24 with PAC sinusitis, PTS, so a bunch of mental health stuff, and sleep apnea using a CPAP. Will they rate based on current intent to file regulations? He's talking about the changes to mental health and sleep apnea. The answer is yes. So let's just say the changes go into effect right now, today, which they're not. For the record, they're not. Don't say that I said it was, okay? They're not.
You say Clay said they were going into effect tonight.
Yeah. If they did, there is the -1 reference. I did a video on it. I forgot the specific reference, but it's in there. When a schedule rating change happens, it goes in favor of the veteran. So if it's old criteria would be 70%, new criteria would be 50. The VA is going to give you 50% or the higher rating, 70, right?
And the best example is that I did a video back in May when where they changed the criteria for the digestive system.
Yeah, for
They
GERD
came
and
out
IBS
with
stuff,
they came out with instructions on. They gave a couple of examples. So that's normally the way it goes, but we don't know that until it goes into effect, and then they provide those instructions for the VA employees and out there in the dashboard as well.
Yeah. But your intent to file is August 23. You filed it in July. Your claims, if they're not decided before next year, I'd be surprised, right?
Yeah.
So you should be pretty good. All right, Dexter Hazelton, thank you very much. Welcome. We appreciate that. Tyrell 3000 says, had a CMP exam for flat feet. Examiner only looked at my feet for a few seconds and told me that's all she needed. Am I screwed? Not exact. That's not a good sign, but not exactly. If you had hard medical evidence that said you had pronounced flat feet, severe, bilateral, and the evidence is there, then we're good. If you have zero evidence and all your evidence is this CMP exam, all of a sudden that starts to look real bad.
Yeah, it's like Matthew McConaughey in the Buyers Club when he was pulled off to the side of the road and he just started crying.
Yeah.
So I because people make an emoji and they say me in the parking lot on Monday morning. They show that clip from the video, and I need to make an emoji. Me submitted my claim with no evidence, and just be like, he just bust out, start crying. So, Clay's right on that one. I agree.
Yeah, it depends on what your evidence is.
Yeah,
and what you submitted with that claim. Now, because you're on YouTube, I would hope you submitted evidence with your claim. If you're listening to us, you should have submitted evidence with your claim. Okay. On the flip note, if you listen to us and you didn't, just know that we're going to tell you to submit evidence with your claim.
Now, Clay, somebody's going to say somewhere that you said tonight, those changes are taking effect today. I know you're going to see it somewhere. You're going to see it somewhere, even though
I'm
you
sure
said it wasn't. But yeah,
I'm sure. Please see question in chat. Jet fuel syndrome. Hey, 24 runner Rob. I cannot. We have over 881 or 771, excuse me, chats.
Wow. Yeah.
Control F doesn't work on StreamYard. There's just no way for me to do that. But we could probably imply your question here because you're talking about Terra is what you're talking about, right? Toxic exposure, risk, activity. I think it goes back to what was the level of your exposure, and two, jet fuel, what you were exposed to. What is your clinical diagnosis? Not what you think you have. What is your clinical diagnosis? Describe the level of exposure you had. Did you sleep next to it? Did you take showers in jet fuel? Right. I mean, I'm doing a little joking there, right? But what's your level of exposure? And then with those two, that's how you build your Terra claim.
Yep. So I'm thinking flight deck operations in the Navy. That's what I'm thinking.
Tons. Okay. I'm trying to get through these, but they just keep coming. Just so you know, we have 100. We have 101.
Yeah, this is unbelievable. Yeah, maybe we can do a rapid fire.
We're gonna have to. We're gonna have to. Okay, this person right here, Patrick R. No one else do a super chat. I'm serious. Okay, no more. We are going to go back to the top here and answer these. Okay, what's your opinion on bruxism claim? Where do I get the evidence? I'm claiming it as secondary to anxiety. There's not many videos about it. I got my 2 cents on this one, but go ahead and take it.
Yeah. Again, it was your opinion. Do you got a diagnosis of bruxism? That's one. Where do you get the evidence? I've seen mental health providers do diagnosis on bruxism because a lot of times it is tied to anxiety. Also, I've seen it from a dentist because they can obviously look and see if there's something like different shavings of the bottom teeth opposed to the top teeth or something like that. It then go from there.
Yeah. And looking at bruxism, it's funny you mentioned anxiety. It's very likely they'll just the VA will rope that into anxiety anyways. So
Hmm.
your own, what are my thoughts about it? I'm not, no claim is useless. Okay. I want to
Right.
make that clear. However, if you claim bruxism, you go through all this trouble to get secondary service connection, and it's roped with your anxiety. Is the juice worth the squeeze, right? If it's not going to
Correct.
increase your anxiety rating, which is probably not, it could, it very well could. I don't know, but if it's likely it's not going to, you may want to put that attention elsewhere.
Right.
Still claim it, right? But you might want to spend more time on other claims. Okay.
You know, I was intending to ask, should we have plugged David's channel if anybody had any questions about the VA
Yeah.
home loan
Sure.
process?
Yeah.
Totally forgot.
Let me, I'll do a comment here. VA housing education.
Yeah.
You can look up David Piatek. We both work with David Piatek. I'll say this about David, and please share your thoughts. The reason I started working with David is because he's a genuine dude. He's a real dude. When it comes to VA home loan stuff, sometimes it seems a little scammy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you talk to a realtor, you're like, yeah, you're not for me. That's not what I got with David.
Yeah.
Up front, like all gloves off. I genuinely believe that, like, I would let him watch my kids. He's not, but I would let him do it. Okay.
Yeah. He came down and he got the book right here in the office. And he was telling people, he's like, no, he actually signs them. He was a whole stack on his desk, you know. And then we did the live, I want to say last Monday, he came down. So we did it in person. He flew down to Tampa and we did it in person. And same, I think he's genuine. His knowledge, I think he can just sit at a family reunion and a barbecue and just talk about VA home loan stuff. So definitely go check him out, VA home loan education. He broke down my COD. I'm about to call it character discharge, closing disclosure statement. And he was like, yeah, you see that 1,500 right there? He's like, yeah, you pay for their marketing. I'm like, man, I
got.
Yeah. And so he broke that down, and people ask questions about, hey, can I transfer my certificate eligibility? A wealth of knowledge. I know he went live with him and I think one of his associates, Lourdes, I think yesterday. They were talking about some stuff, and they're both in the Chicago area doing some really good work. So yeah, definitely check him out.
Yep, for sure. All right. Brian 392. Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Junior Camper says, is it better to claim primary and secondaries, everything in your first initial claim, just to get your primary claim service connected the first, then go to secondaries? There's two answers. One, for effective dates only, the answer is yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Two, you still have the intent to file. And if you're going for secondaries on primaries that aren't service connected yet, you really need to submit evidence. Like, you need to submit as much evidence as possible for both the primary and the secondary. It's not let me claim that and fight it in appeals later. That's not the right mindset to have at all. Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, you can do it that way. I rated tons of cases that way. Again, the evidence is going to be key.
Mm-hmm.
Keep in mind that primary gets denied, everything else goes down the drain with it.
Yeah. You still have the ability for the appeal though. So that's
right. And even if you claim, let's say you claim tinnitus and then you claim migraine secondary to tinnitus and you're not service connected for the tinnitus. So you want to word that migraines, I'm claiming migraines secondary to my non-service connected, but claimed tinnitus. Okay. And what they should look for, if there's a negative opinion, I would look at this before I even submitted the 2507 medical request. Is it in the service treatment records? Because if it is, not only am I asking for secondary service connection
direct
opinion, I'm asking for direct at the same time. Are you going to get that these days? Probably not, but you should know it because they should be giving you due process.
Yep. And migraines is a part of the MUCMIs under the PACT Act as well. So it could be, you know what's funny about that? In your decision letter, you could potentially be denied 3 times, right? For direct, for secondary, for Terra. It would probably be Terra more than PACT-ACT because if you have the diagnosis, you're good. So, okay. On that note, when I see a decision letter where someone's been denied multiple times, I'm like, hey, this is bad news, but you weren't just denied once, you were denied 3 times. So sorry. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Recently awarded 100% P&T IU. One, congrats. I really hate seeing IU P&T just because you're, in my opinion, that's the most vulnerable population of veterans where you can't work due to your disability. So thank you for your service. Seriously.
Yeah.
And then they say, thank you both for your informative and effective videos dealing with VBA as they helped me tremendously. Thanks, dude. Congrats to you. I hope that alleviates your financial burden on your life at a minimum.
Yeah.
All right. Brian says, did a HLR for migraines, found a DTA error, extremely common. It shouldn't be, but it is. Due to the fact they disregarded my nexus, favorable findings found that I was diagnosed for migraines. Is this good or bad? I mean, you're back in the process, so it's not bad. Is it going to be service connected? We can't say that without looking at the nexus for ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add for DTA errors?
Yeah. So a lot of times veterans will say, due to the fact disregarded my nexus. If it's in the evidence section, they didn't disregard it.
Yeah.
So I've never seen a legitimate DTA under disregarded your nexus. It had to be. One thing I tell veterans, when you have an informal conference and the decision review officer says DTA error, don't get off the phone or call Clay or me and ask us, what was the DTA error? That's the person you should have been asking. Hey, well, you see a DTA error, DTA error, please explain it to me. That's the person you have to ask. Simple as that.
Yeah. And most, I'm glad you brought that up because most raters who are doing the informal conference, they're assuming that you don't know the VBA claims process because that would be a crazy assumption, right?
Yeah.
And if once you ask that prompts them to say, hey, let me actually, if you want to know, I will tell you, right? Most people don't want to know, which is wrong, by the way. You should want to know.
You want to know. Yeah.
It is what it is. Okay, Patrick R., do y'all do one-on-one consultations and the cost? I'll let you answer that one first because I'm in the midst here.
Okay. We do private Q&As, and those private Q&As are $295 an hour. My weekly webinar that I do, you attend that first because sometimes I answer questions, even though my team hates it when I do it. If it's a simple question, I'm going to give you the answer. It's, I'm not going to charge you to come and for me to tell you something simple. And like I stated earlier, if it's something I got a video on, I'm going to direct you to the video first. And then if you have questions after that, then we can talk. But the majority of the time, 9 times out of 10, when I refer you to those videos, you're not going to call me back and ask me for a Q&A because you've already gotten your answer.
Yeah. And for me, full disclosure, if I am able to ever quit my job and do this full time, I've done one-on-ones for free before anonymously, and then I use those as videos. And surprisingly, those get a decent amount of views. And so I plan on doing more one-on-ones. But right now I work full time. I have 4 kids. I'm in a grad school program. I'm busy. But once I have the time, it's looking to be in the spring, I'm going to start rolling out more one-on-ones. Does that help you now, Patrick? It doesn't. You're probably mad that I even said that. But I'm going to at some point. So you have 2 options there.
Right. And you have to ask what are consultations, because we used to do free 15-minute consultations, and veterans thought, oh, let me just tell you my story. And our consultations were for us to ask a couple of questions to see how we could educate you. So when you say consultation, understand, that's why we say private Q&A, because we answer questions and we don't advise. Even on the website, we tell you, we do not advise you on your claim. Get educated, and you have to make the best informed decision going forward.
Absolutely. And with YouTube, especially in 2024, not just our 2 channels, you have tons of channels out there. You can figure it out. Okay.
Yeah.
The process does work.
Yeah. And when I'm showing slides, I'm giving you the answers to where to go find the information. So the only thing you got to do is jot down the M21 dash. When I say slide number 1 is either going to be a 38 CFR, a court case, or something like that. You just got to invest the time to say, okay, because my videos, I don't know about you, Clay, they could be an hour each easy.
Yes.
Like we've been on what 3.5 hours. They could be an hour easy, but nobody's going to stay engaged that long, you know. So I'm giving you a few nuggets, but then you got to devote the time to go and continue to do that research.
Yep. Absolutely. Second to last one here. I'm so excited. Loco, this is like your 4th or 5th time, dude. Thank you. One, but please, you don't have to. We definitely appreciate it. And then 24 Runner Rob, thank you for doing it late night for the West Coast. Absolutely. That's something that I probably completely disregard because I'm on my own schedule, but we're both on the East Coast.
Yeah.
So I'll definitely be thinking about that. All right, dude. KMD, we've made it.
That's it. We out.
That's it. Seriously, when you were live with David Piatek, that's when I texted David. I was like, hey, tell KMD I want to do a live Q&A with him.
Yeah, he told me.
Everyone keeps saying, hey, CIVDIV and KMD are the best. And I would find that true as well, at least when it comes to specific claim information, right? Versus like veteran related news and other topics like that. But I am, if you want to do this again, I'm definitely more than willing. I think the numbers tell us we should do it again.
This is crazy. It was a lot. Yeah. But I enjoyed it. And I tell people, even though I'm a for-profit, I sat here for 3.5 hours and you got your questions answered for free. Definitely appreciate all the donations. Thank you from the bottom of both our hearts. But again, this is where you got 3.5 hours, just send your questions. And we didn't get to the live questions because there was so many super chats. And I do that when I go live. I always try to, people, they take, the hard-earned money, $1.99, whatever. I definitely want to get those questions answered. So, but Kyle, definitely thank you for inviting me on. Definitely looking forward to doing this again. Man, you talking about we got up almost 700 people at one time?
Yeah, we got. So in a week, YouTube usually puts analytics out for lives after a week. I'm so excited to see the numbers.
But it does, yeah. And David Piatek and I, we're going live the 10th. So day after tomorrow. Supposed to get the hurricane tomorrow. I got my webinar tomorrow. Probably be the second time I've done a live during a hurricane. But David Piatek and I, we're going live this Thursday, and we're going to be doing VA home loan and compensation questions as well. Maybe one time maybe December, all three of us could get on here.
Yeah. Who knows?
And see what but I definitely enjoyed this. Definitely enjoyed it.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna let you go. I gotta go upstairs. My wife is gonna kill me for 3.5 hour stream. Okay. But
I tell people I can't go out in the backyard because we got all the patio furniture pulled in, but I'm definitely in trouble too. So.
All right. Thank you very much, KMD, and everyone who came. Thank you very much. We definitely appreciate it. No questions get asked, no answers. No questions get answered. You get what I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah, I got you. All right.
Later.
Take care. All right.
All right.